Chapter 2764 Revelation Divine Power, Three-Ruler Law. This burst of divine power was colorless and formless. It transformed into a domain, enveloping Futian's body directly. It even spread towards the boundless lands. The terrifying spiritual energy storm transformed into the aggressive domain power. Under this domain, every cultivator felt extremely uncomfortable. Their wills were restricted, and the great path's force within them was similarly restricted. This was a kind of invisible constraint. Cultivators who had not gone through tribulation lost their combat ability directly, and could not move. Their bodies were drenched with sweat instantly. Futian was the closest to Dongwang Diyuan and felt this intensely. The terrifying divine power pressed down on his will and pressed down on his path. He had felt this power before. He had once used a similar power before. The power contained in the Yukio song was unreachable in the world. However, the Yukio song that he used could not be compared to the current power. This tangible improvement could even be called divine power now. She had only touched upon it, but even so, it was already highly horrifying. It was unimaginable how horrifying it would be if a great emperor had released this divine power. The top figures of each world stared at Dongwang Diyuan. Everyone understood clearly that Dongwang the Great's divine power was extremely hard to cultivate successfully. Even though Dongwang Diyuan was his child, it was still not easily inherited. Now, they finally saw the divine power of Dongwang the Great bloom from Dongwang Diyuan. Dongwang Diyuan had completed the first transformation. Divine Power Revelation. This was the divine power that was unique to Dongwang the Great. No one else could do it. Di Hao of the human realm studied Dongwang Diyuan. Had she awoken her divine power? Then they looked toward Futian. Dongwang Diyuan released her divine power, while Futian also displayed the beast control ability that Emperor Yi Qing had been skilled yet. These mortal enemies finally showed the skills of the twin emperors in this duel. Dongwang Diyuan studied Futian with her pretty eyes. Elegant yet cold, it seemed that she had recovered her original state, the high and mighty princess of the divine prefecture. "Since you don't know your place, then I will make it easy for you," Dongwang Diyuan said coldly. The revelation divine power exploded, and a horrifying divine power storm swept towards Futian, causing all of his power to be restricted. On the other hand, Dongwang Diyuan seemed to have gotten even stronger. Tianxing! A phoenix divine sword materialized, and endless sword intent exploded with the revelation divine power. That moment, all of the force of the great path before Futian shattered. The surrounding endless sword intent turned to smoke instantly, becoming dust under the divine power. The phoenix divine sword blasted onto his divine sword. Under this horrible power, it seemed that no force of the great path could survive. Bang! With a loud bang, the divine sword crumbled into nothing. Futian's figure also vanished from his spot and appeared in another direction. However, he still felt that he was in the range of the divine power. In fact, the divine power had affected his body. Even his celerity was restricted by the divine power. Dongwang Diyuan's gaze turned and looked up at Futian in the sky. Her expression was indifferent. Within the divine power's domain, Futian felt that his abilities were heavily restricted, drastically weakening his combat abilities. "Careful, it's the revelation divine power of Dongwang the Great." Supreme Sword Lord transmitted his voice to Futian. He was standing below, but even he could feel how frightening the divine power was. He cultivated the supreme way and had already touched the fringe of divine power. If he could reach the great emperor plane, then the supreme divine power might counter the revelation divine power, but it wasn't certain. Now, these momentous figures were truly climbing onto the stage of history. Just at this moment, divine emerald light shimmered where Futian was. It exploded viciously even under the restraints of the revelation divine power. The emerald windstorm encircled Futian's body. The power of the divine ruler within him seemed to have been released fully at this moment, causing a shocking emerald storm to appear around him. It wasn't restricted by the revelation divine power at all. This? So powerful! The strong cultivators' hearts all shook at this scene. The power of the divine ruler that Futian inherited was also an extreme divine power. This force was not restricted by the revelation divine power and burst forth viciously, forming a boundlessly huge divine ruler. Shocking divine runes flowed in the divine ruler, making the sky and earth extremely heavy. Boom! Then Futian released his form, instantly transforming into a giant. Like a deity, he wielded the huge divine ruler. Horrifying power burst forth as he stepped towards Dong Huang Diyuan. Merely one step shook the void. The space was about to disintegrate. Boom! Then Futian swung up the divine ruler like a deity. An unsurmountable power seemed to want to shatter the earth, and countless silhouettes of the divine ruler appeared in the sky. They bloomed under the restriction of the divine power. What technique or method is this? The strong cultivators all stared at Futian. When Futian transformed into a deity wielding the divine ruler, the vast group of cultivators felt a supreme divine might. A suffocating pressure appeared in the boundless land too. There was the bright chirp of a phoenix, and the divine phoenix void covered the phoenix divine sword. At the same time, countless phoenix silhouettes and the divine sword containing the fire of the divine phoenix burned towards Futian. The laws of the world, the three-ruler law. The deity-like figure uttered that and wielded the divine ruler in his hands. Tens of thousands of ruler silhouettes covered the sky and sun, sweeping by. They transformed into an absolute law domain. The forces shooting toward Futian disintegrated in that instant, turning into dust. No force could approach him other than the revelation divine power. Dong Huang Diyuan was some distance away from Futian, but she could still feel how frightening that force was. The laws of the world, the three-ruler law? All the strong cultivators stared in the direction of Futian. Where had he cultivated and learned this divine technique? Boom! An extremely wild storm swept over, lifting a frightening force. Everyone stared over there. Under this storm, many people started retreating, worried that this attack would reach them. It was as if no force could withstand near Futian. The cultivators in the distance also looked over here. It was such an intense duel, the fated battle between the descendants of Emperor Yi Qing and Dong Huang the Great. Futian, son of Emperor Yi Qing, was not any weaker than Dong Huang Diyuan, daughter of Dong Huang the Great, even though Dong Huang Diyuan had released the revelation divine power. The second ruler was released. Thousands of arms appeared behind Dong Huang Diyuan, and she stabbed with the divine sword simultaneously, attacking the thousands of ruler silhouettes that Futian sent down. Boom, boom, boom. The horrible sounds continued. The sky and earth cracked and collapsed. That unsurmountable force overpowered everything. The aura is stronger now. The three-ruler law, could the three rulers determine the universe? Everyone stared at Futian. In this case, would the next ruler be the strongest attack, enough to destroy all? At this time, even Dong Huang Diyuan's expression was extremely grave. Supported by the divine power, she pushed her force to the max. Chapter 2765 Clash of Divine Power. When the third ruler slammed down, all the ruler silhouettes in the sky unified, becoming one ruler. The vast domain transformed into the domain of the three-ruler law. All the force of the great path was about to be pulverized. Terrible divine flames, the illusory silhouettes of the true dragon and ancient phoenix, and countless sword silhouettes were all destroyed in that law domain. There was a muffled sound. Even though they were far away, the cultivators in surrounding areas could all feel how frightening this ruler's power was. It was like a blow from a deity. Boom! A huge divine phoenix appeared behind Dong Huang Diyuan. It was as if a fire burned in her body, undefeatable like a goddess. The revelation divine power swept forth and restricted the strength of the third ruler. However, the muffled boom continued and was unstoppable. The colorless and formless revelation divine power intersected and clashed in the air with the emerald power of the divine ruler. There were restrictions, but it could not fend off this destructive blow. Dong Huang Diyuan felt that she was also inside the three-ruler law's domain. Even though the mass of ruler silhouettes had transformed into one ruler, she still felt that there were countless ruler silhouettes everywhere. This was the conception of the domain restricting her. The ancient dragon soul seemed to have been awakening. The bright dragon roar shook countless people's eardrums. The revelation divine power swept past, and paired with the dragon roar, the cultivators under the tribulation plane directly lost their combat ability. Even cultivators who had passed the divine tribulation of the great path similarly found it hard to budge. They were firmly restricted, and this was not even a direct attack, they were only bystanders. One could imagine what kind of force Yi Futian was enduring. But even so, Yi Futian was still the one with the upper hand. Not only did he not retreat, he even unleashed a shocking attack. How horrifying was the power of the ancient dragon! It was the strongest of the historical divine powers. When unleashed with the revelation divine power, it spurred the ancient phoenix divine sword, transforming into a true phoenix divine sword. It burned with divine phoenix fire and bore the power of Tianqing. It stabbed forward without obstacles, and the huge divine sword and the incoming divine ruler crashed in the sky. That moment, a destructive windstorm swept over. Divine light of the great path shone across everything, lifting a shocking wave. Bang, bang! Many people were sent flying by this storm. Even the shockwaves could sweep them out and make them spit out blood. The top figures of the Emperor-level forces released strong domain power to protect the cultivators beside them. When the destructive storm arrived, cracks even appeared in the domains. Di Hao and other top figures stood in the storm, steady and upright, but their expressions were still exceptionally grave as they stared at these two strong cultivators. The combat abilities of both Yi Futian and Dong Wang Diyuan were extremely shocking. Of course, they weren't surprised that Dong Wang Diyuan could have these abilities. She was the daughter of Dong Wang the Great, after all. She had been taught by Dong Wang the Great since childhood and inherited his divine power, so she naturally had very strong trump cards. But even though Yi Futian was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing, he had never indeed received much guidance or heritages. His cultivation resources were far off from Dong Wang Diyuan. He had accomplished all this by himself, step by step, so it was extremely shocking that he could release such terrifying abilities. The destructive storm swept through, and the true Phoenix Divine Sword shattered. The Divine Ruler was also crumbling bit by bit, but that horrible storm still swept towards the two. Yi Futian's godly body took a few steps back. His feet stepped in the sky and steadied himself after a loud boom. Meanwhile, Dong Wang Diyuan's body was sent flying. She let out a muffled grunt, and there was blood at the corner of her lips. She lifted her head. Her beautiful features seemed a bit pale now, and the divine phoenix imprint between her brows seemed a bit dull. Her pretty eyes looked towards Yi Futian. Yi Futian felt a complicated emotion flash through her eyes at that moment, but it was gone in an instant, and she became indifferent. She stared coldly at him. That windstorm finally swept past, and everyone took a deep breath. Their hearts had gone through tremendous ups and downs. When they looked toward the battlefield, their hearts pulsed. This battle had affected them very strongly. Yi Futian had forced Dong Wang Diyuan back, and it was Dong Wang Diyuan who had activated the revelation divine power. As expected, Yi Futian was now qualified to stand at the pinnacle and compete for the emperor position with the others. Who of these unparalleled figures could step onto the path to the great emperor? What power is the divine ruler that you received? Dong Wang Diyuan asked Yi Futian, voice frigid. Princess, if you're so curious, how about I tell you privately? Yi Futian answered with a cold sneer. The power of the divine ruler was compatible with his life spirit. He had been learning this power continuously these past few years to turn it into his way. It was not merely a type of power, nor did it belong to any way. Of course, he would not tell any of this to Dong Wang Diyuan. Plus, there were so many strong figures here. It was honestly a bit strange for Dong Wang Diyuan to ask that. While they were speaking, a shocking aura suddenly spread over. Dazzling light enveloped the land, and many people looked up. They saw Di Hao's figure appear in the sky, radiating with incredible divine light. A righteous air seemed to appear in the sky and land at that moment. The entire world's power seemed to be resonating with his body. Was Di Hao going to attack too? A holy figure appeared. Di Hao had transformed into the divine human, sovereign of the world. He stood high in the sky as if all the power in the world was his to use. That righteous air was the correct way of the world. He could control all the power in the world as if he was the god of this world. The divine human, the power of the human world. Futian furrowed his brows. This burst of power was pressing down straight at him. He had just battled furiously with Dongwang Diyuan, and now, Dihao was going to get involved in the fight, just like attacking Yi Qingyao with Dongwang Diyuan previously. It seemed that the rumors might be true. The human ancestor of the human realm might really propose marriage to Dongwang the Great, and want a marriage alliance. He kept stepping out to ally with Dongwang Diyuan. Was he trying to imply something? Many huge divine swords abruptly appeared in the sky. A muffled air covered the boundless void, and the huge divine swords hovered in the air above the strong cultivators' heads. They pointed in Futian's direction. Futian, since you fell voluntarily to ally with darkness, the human realm can only work to rid the darkness, Dihao announced. His voice shook the heavens. Transformed into the divine human, he carried natural mightiness. He pointed down with a finger, and there were horrifying booming sounds. The sword of mankind shot down, going murderously towards Futian. The divine ruler in Futian's hands pierced through the void and instantly formed a terrifying divine ruler domain. The huge divine sword shot down but couldn't break into the domain. It was outside the divine ruler domain. But Dihao did not stop. The power of the world kept converging into divine swords, seamless, endless, crazily stabbing towards Futian. Chapter 2766 Avajura's Divine Sword. The sword of mankind crashed down, time and time again, in a highly aggressive manner, making Futian's huge body fall down the sky. A crack appeared in the domain formed by the divine ruler. At this time, Dihao stepped forward. Transformed into the divine human, he went for the kill with the divine sword in hand. It was named the Sword of Mankind, but it came from the heavens. Like a sword of the skies, it carried unsurmountable strength, and stabbed the defenses directly. The crack in the divine ruler domain instantly started growing. VV! Bang! With a loud bang, Futian's godly figure was forced down. Dihao's direct attack had shaken him, forcing Futian back, but it had not caused much damage. Despicable! The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace cursed. Futian had just fought with Dongwang Diyuan and forced the other back, even injuring this divine prefecture princess. Then Dihao attacked directly, engaging Futian in a second round. The strong cultivators all gasped inwardly at this scene. These top figures all had such extraordinary abilities when they attacked. They were all the heirs of great emperors. Futian was as well. Nowadays, all the realms recognized him as the heir of Emperor Yi Qing. Even though he had inherited the heritages of other great emperors, he was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing. He had inherited Emperor Yi Qing's abilities, which were different from the others. Dongwang Diyuan, Dihao, and the others did not have the heritages of only one great emperor either. Dongwang Diyuan had inherited the ancient phoenix long ago, and was baptized by the ancient phoenix. She had formed the unparalleled body and a strong divine soul. Dongwang the Great wanted his daughter to have no weaknesses and be equal in all aspects. Even so, she had still lost when fighting Futian with the revelation divine power, and had been forced back. They were at a place of destiny, and the defeat of this battle held special meaning. Fortunately, the gap did not seem very large, and there was still a chance to turn the tides in the future. At their current level of cultivation, whoever took one step forward would transform and leave the others in the dust. Boom! A horrible storm appeared in the atrium. The crowd looked up at the sky to see Dihao's divine human become one with the skies and earth. He was the world here was him. All the strong figures felt incredible pressure, and it wasn't easy to breathe. They stood in the space below, and seemed incredibly insignificant. Even Futian's transformed body seemed a bit trivial compared to the divine human that had become one with the world. The divine human's shadow covered the vast land. The human ancestor was the most ancient of great emperors, and no one knew how many years he had lived for, but he might be the one who lived for the longest in the world. He ruled the human realm, and was named Human ancestor. Borrowing the power of humans, the human ancestor believed that a mortal's body could be equal to the gods. He represented the righteousness of humanity, and had indeed done it. He invented the power of the divine human and was invincible, reaching the same level as other divine powers. Right now, Dihao had transformed into the divine human and was much stronger than at the beginning of the battle. He had seen Yi Futian's battle with Dong Huang Diyuan and knew how strong Yi Futian was. Thus, he also unleashed his strongest abilities instead of hiding them. As soon as the divine power was out, the skies and lands were repressed to the extreme. A supreme force converged and could be hurled down at any moment. Countless cultivators looked up at Yi Futian, but saw a figure rise behind him. This figure was the Reaper, Yi Qingyao. Yi Qingyao's body appeared in the sky above Yi Futian. Her eyes seemed to have changed. Her dark gray irises no longer had the feeling of life. There appeared to be a battlefield and a deity in her two eyes. It was the dark god of war looming on the earth. Boom! A frightening storm of death started. Darkness shrouded the land, and a humongous silhouette of the dark god of war appeared behind Yi Qingyao. Yi Qingyao's body gradually melded into it. The horrible divine light of destruction fell from the atrium, darkening the sky. Strands of divine power that could destroy everything were born from it. When they fell onto the earth, the ground instantly cracked apart with frightening fissures. King Azura! The strong cultivators all stared at Yi Qingyao. Had she inherited the Azura's divine power from King Azura? Of the heavenly path's 8 legions, Azura represented death and destruction in ancient times. Azura's divine power then was the symbol of death and destruction. Such strong destructive power! The strong Buddhist stared at Yi Qingyao's figure. Murderous intent appeared in the medicine Buddha Lord's eyes. This Yi Qingyao inherited King Azura's power and awakened Azura's divine power. She was known as the Reaper, and as she continued to grow stronger, she would probably bring even greater disasters to the world. Yi Futian also turned back to look at Yi Qingyao now. Qingyao's growth was the most frightening that he'd witnessed, but this was also due to how special Yi Qingyao was. She was known as the Child of Darkness, and belonged to the darkness since birth. She was born with the divine body of darkness, so her cultivation speed was practically frightening. Now she had inherited Azura's strength, too, possessing Azura's divine power. The destructive divine power circled Azura's godly silhouette. An extremely scary divine weapon appeared in Yi Qingyao's hands. This divine weapon was a combined double sword. Bloody divine light flowed through it, giving off an extremely sharp feeling. Avi Divine Sword! The medicine Buddha Lord stared at the divine sword. The Avi Azura sword was said to be King Azura's weapon, and Yi Qingyao got a hold of it. The Avi divine sword gathered horrifying divine power. The world was enveloped in destructive intent. Dihao frowned slightly, and the divine human dealt a blow below. The power of the earth converged into a sword, the sword of mankind, and shot downwards, murderously. The godly silhouette of Azura stabbed with the Avi divine sword directly and crashed against the sword of mankind that contained the divine human's power. The corrosive and destructive power instantly started destroying the sword of mankind. The horrible divine power kept climbing up as the massive sword of mankind broke inch by inch until it was obliterated and turned to dust. Dihao lifted his hand and created a huge divine seal in the lower sky. The divine human released the seal of mankind and finally fended off the shockwaves from the Avi divine sword, but the seal was also extinguished. In the sky, Dihao's divine human figure looked down on Azura's figure with an extremely grave expression. He stared at the red Avi divine sword. It was actually 2 connected swords. Like a bloody blade, it emanated the frightening divine power of Azura. It was as if anything would be destroyed if it was hit by it. Boom! Just then, Buddhist light dazzled. The medicine Buddha Lord walked over, and countless Buddhas followed after him. Their eyes looked at Yi Qingyao, who had transformed into King Azura and held the Avi divine sword. She had not only inherited Azura's divine power. Now, she had even brought out the Azura Legion's imperial weapon. This was a disaster to the cultivation world. What are the bald mules doing? An indifferent voice asked. Then the strong figures of the Devil Imperial Palace also walked forth. The devil intent roiled and roared on them. The devil and dark worlds had always been against the Western heaven world of Buddhism. They could not stand the Buddhist cultivators. At present, the two parties had clear standpoints. If the Buddhists of the Western heaven world of Buddhism attacked, they naturally would not just stand by. Chapter 2767 The Medicine Buddha Lord Attacks. The strong cultivators advanced from all directions. A stalemate situation appeared between the top figures of the six realms, and the boundless land became extremely repressive. And at this time, the battlefield up above also stopped. The Lord Shaman and Li Daosho's figures separated. Their auras hovered on them, but they were still horribly frightening and covered a portion of the sky. Great battles were in process everywhere in the distant battlefields. The Medicine Buddha Lord looked down the sky, staring at Yi Qin Yao, holding the Avi Divine Sword, and Yi Futian. If Azura is not destroyed, the universe will be at risk, he said. Buddhists, please work hard. Amitabha. All the Buddhists put their hands together in prayer. Buddhist light shone from their bodies, and their expressions were solemn. The Vajra Buddha Lord said to Yi Futian to persuade him, Benefactor Yi, why must you be so stubborn? You do not have to be involved in the war of the six realms. Thank you, Buddha Lord, for your concern. Yi Futian also put his hands together in greeting. I naturally am not qualified to join the war of the six realms and do not wish to do so either. But I was unwillingly involved, and I already said the reason so that I won't mention it again. If you all must attack, you do not need to show mercy. Amitabha. The Buddhists chanted the Buddha's name, and Buddhist light illuminated the boundless land. It grew brighter and brighter, enveloping the boundless sky in the Buddhist light. Instantly, the dark power of death and destruction scattered madly, extinguishing under the Buddhist light as if the Buddhist doctrine would purify it. Humph! The top figures of the devil and dark worlds also released a frightening aura. Devilish might filled the sky at once, rolling and roaring. The strong cultivators of the dark world were covered in death and destruction. These forces converged into a chaotic current. This region became extremely violent, as if it would be ignited at a touch. Give this woman to me to deal with, the Medicine Buddha Lord said. As soon as he spoke, he reached his palm out. The precious treasure of the Buddhist clan was released instantly. It was the cleansing Vaidurya Pagoda, precious item of the Buddhist clan and the supreme Buddhist item of the Medicine Buddha Lord's Buddhist cultivation court. The cleansing Vaidurya Pagoda flew out, enlarging instantly. It covered the sky and sun like a boundless divine pagoda that reached the heavens. Incomparable purifying Buddhist light was released from it. When the strands of golden Buddhist light shone, the powers of destruction and death and the devil path's power were all cleansed. They turned to ash and vanished instantly. Rounds of aggressively purifying Buddhist light swept out of the pagoda. It was like a supreme ancient Buddha appeared in the skies, shining down with Buddhist light. The cultivators of the dark world below were in extreme pain. The dark power within them was about to be cleansed and wiped out. They were forced to release their abilities to the B/B. Yi Qin Yao, transformed into King Azura, held the Avi Divine Sword. The blood-red destructive divine power surged toward the upper sky, and her body also went up. She faced this supreme item of the Buddhist clan alone, and stabbed toward the pagoda with the Avi Divine Sword in her hand. The rounds of pagoda silhouettes sweeping down were directly annihilated under the destructive divine power. The frightening divine power of Azura penetrated from within and continued up, attacking the pagoda itself. Clang! With a huge sound, the frightening Avi Divine Sword stabbed right into the cleansing Vaidurya Pagoda, making the pagoda shake violently. The destructive divine power of Azura flooded the pagoda wildly, about to destroy this supreme Buddhist item. But then the Medicine Buddha Lord's figure appeared above the pagoda. He slammed down at the pagoda with a palm. There was instantly another huge boom and divine light swept across the pagoda, forcing the Avi Divine Sword back. So powerful! Yi Futian stared up into the sky. The Medicine Buddha Lord's abilities were terrifying. This great Buddha had a very high status in the Buddhist clan. He had vaguely felt it when cultivating in the spirit mountain of Western Heaven back then. Even Saint Jinchan had to ask to meet him. He had a special status and had always been cultivating in the Vaidurya pure world. His cultivation might be at the pinnacle of the near-deity level. The overall level of the Buddhist clan was frighteningly intense. It was not even the entire group this time. There were some Buddhists among the clan who did not wish to take part in conflicts. They focused solely on the Buddha and cultivating the Buddhist doctrine. The medicine Buddha Lord stood high in the sky. The cleansing Vaidurya pagoda seemed to become an illusion. It passed right through his body but then seemed to combine into one with him. The medicine Buddha Lord held the mudra and closed his eyes. He seemed solemn. Instantly, the boundless Buddhist doctrine covered the vast sky. The light of the cleansing Vaidurya pagoda shone across thousands of miles, covering the extremely vast battlefield. It was like a Buddhist lantern had lit up behind the medicine Buddha Lord. He chanted Buddhist words, and the boundless Buddhist doctrine covered the entire world. The Buddhist light illuminated the world, and all the intents of death and destruction in the vast sky battlefield were cleansed. At the same time, under the Buddhist light, rounds of pagoda silhouettes pressed down on the silhouette of King Ajura. The cleansing Buddhist light also shone, illuminating this domain. Seeing this scene, Yi Futian's brows furrowed slightly. He had a bad feeling. Yi Qingmiao was already very strong and had inherited Ajura's divine power, wielding the Emperor's weapon. However, she was still far from the medicine Buddha Lord in her understanding of the way and doctrines. The medicine Buddha Lord was a supreme figure of the Buddhist clan, and had the cleansing Vaidurya pagoda to counter the Avi divine sword. Under these circumstances, Yi Qingmiao might be restrained by the other. The Avi divine sword released a blood-red light, and transformed into a curtain of light. It circled above King Ajura's body. The divine light of the pagoda shot down, shaking the blood-red curtain of light. The frightening cleansing Vaidurya pagoda was the power of the Buddhist clan. It actually seeped into the curtain of light, eroding Ajura's divine power. This attack was also endless. Pagoda silhouettes kept sweeping down to attack, causing the blood-red light curtain to be eaten up slowly. Clang! There was a huge sound, and the light curtain shattered. The cleansing Vaidurya light invaded, and the pagoda fell down to kill directly. It smashed onto the Avi divine sword, forcing Yi Qingmiao transformed into King Ajura back. She let out a muffled grunt. Clearly, Yi Qingmiao's abilities had reached this level, but she still lacked a lot of experience. The medicine Buddha Lord's attacks hadn't stopped yet. He continued to deal blows downward to Yi Qingmiao. He stood in the void with his eyes closed, Buddhist light shining upon the region. Ling Long! Yi Futian called out. Ling Long had been behind Yi Futian the entire time. Now, her figure flashed. Torrents of battle intent surged on her body, formed by the will of Tianxin. She went straight to the air above Yi Qingmiao. The aggressive will of Tianxin countered the murderous Buddhist power. She raised her arms, and instantly, the pagoda shook violently. Another one. The medicine Buddha Lord stared at Ling Long, seeming to sense how special Ling Long was. However, they didn't know what he meant by another one. Boom! At that moment, a strong force fell upon Yi Futian. He raised his head and saw Di Hao still staring at him. Was Di Hao still brooding about his fight with Dong Wan Diyuan earlier? Chapter 2768 speaks of benevolence. A frightening natural phenomenon appeared around Di Hao. He had transformed into the divine human, and was like the sovereign of the world. Supreme might weighed down on Yi Futian. He raised his head to look up at that face, and then took a step up to the void. Since you want to fight so badly, then let us fight without reserve. After Yi Futian spoke, his figure rushed into the sky, charging into the clouds. However, no matter how he flew up, that divine human silhouette was always above him. It was like it had become one with the heavens above his head, representing the order of this land. The power of the divine human represented the supreme power of the human world, reaching the level of gods as a mortal human. Boom! A horrible aura burst from Yi Futian's body. The divine ruler's power swept out, and the emerald storm encircled his body. A gust of horrifying aura of the great way flared from Yi Futian's body. Yi Futian, Dongwang the Great was willing to show you mercy so that I can give you a chance too. The human realm represents the order of the human world. If you're willing to turn back, there might still be a place for you in the world as the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing, Di Hao said. His body had the air of righteousness, and he had a benevolent heart. It surprised Yi Futian a bit. Of course, he did not know if Di Hao was genuine or not, but he encouraged Yi Futian to turn back in times like this. How could he turn back? Why would he turn back? It had been the divine prefecture that had been so aggressive ever since he started cultivating in the Ziwei segmentum. Telling him to turn back? Even though you started cultivating earlier than me, you're only one of the heirs of the human realm. It's still unknown if you can step onto the path of the Emperor to inherit the position, but you're encouraging me to turn back. Who are you to make the decision? Yi Futian asked calmly. Are you able to influence the human ancestor or Dongwang the Great? Plus, according to what the Dark Sovereign had said, the human ancestor had had a hand in Emperor Yi Qing's death back then. The world did not allow the divine prefecture to have the twin emperors. Of course, he vaguely felt that this wasn't the full history. It would probably be a while before the truth of that history could be revealed. Di Hao stared at Yi Futian. Naturally, he could not influence the human ancestor or Dongwang the Great. He continued saying, the human ancestor is the ancestor of humanity. He manages the justice of the world. Dongwang the Great has a peerless breadth of spirit. Of course, he would tolerate you. Since he did not kill you in the divine prefecture back then, it already shows his attitude. I can't influence them, but this is still a chance for you. If you continue down this path, you will have no chance of survival. Yi Futian counted as a top figure too and was cream of the crop. It was just that his background was the weakest, so to Di Hao, he would suffer the most if a storm swept through the 7 realms. The other heirs would not face the threat of death, but it wasn't the same for Yi Futian. Who could protect him? Justice of the world? Yi Futian was shocked when he heard Di Hao's words. Since when could the human realm represent the justice of the world? You speak so much of benevolence and morals. Why don't you have the cultivators of the human realm come cultivate in the Devil Abyss, or have the people of the Devil Realm move out of the Devil Abyss and into the human realm? Some people below retorted. They did not like Di Hao's words. The Devil Realm had been in the Devil Abyss generation after generation. Who were the ones that stopped them from leaving the Devil Abyss? The world shall have its order. Di Hao glanced at the ground below. The supreme might was still hanging over the lower sky. Yi Futian stood there, unmoved. He reached a hand out, and in an instant, countless divine swords appeared in the surrounding skies and land. Every divine sword had extremely beautiful runes that shimmered with outstanding divine light. These divine swords flowed against the tide, releasing incredible sword intent. Heaven slay! Yi Futian lifted a finger. Instantly, boundless divine swords broke through the air, moving towards that place in the sky and the divine human, Di Hao. Brilliant divine light shone from the divine human. In the sky, countless divine swords also plummeted down, transforming into the sword of mankind. It clashed against the rising heaven-slaying divine sword, and a destructive storm of sword chi swept over in the sky instantly. Amidst it, a huge sword continued going up against the tide. It penetrated the void and shot up murderously, wanting to open up the sky and kill the divine human. Divine light shimmered on Di Hao's body. The divine human pointed a finger down. Instantly, a huge sword of mankind shot down, destroying all existences. It crashed against the heaven-slaying divine sword, and, like the world falling apart, a destructive current flooded the space. Before Di Hao could process everything, he felt an even stronger aura descend in the sky. Yi Futian lifted the massive heaven-slaying divine sword as if it was a sword of laws that controlled the order of the world. He kept rising, penetrating the void. Everything in his path was turned to dust, no force could stop him. Even the sword of mankind also disintegrated. The divine ruler sword shot towards that area, opening up the sky and destroying the divine human. The will of the Great Way all started roaring madly. At that moment, Di Hao seemed to have gathered all the strength of humanity onto himself. He represented the way of the human realm, controlling the world order. He put his hands under the atrium. A humongous divine sword appeared between his huge hands. The 1,000-zhang-long sword had extremely beautiful divine runes on it. The beautiful divine runes represented the order of humanity and ruled over the murderous power of the world. Countless fighting currents flowed down, along with numerous sword silhouettes. But these silhouettes seemed to kill strong figures of the same level. The two substantial divine swords crashed again in the sky. In an instant, dazzling divine light stabbed into people's eyes. The massive divine powers flowed through the air. Yi Futian's body seemed to have become one with the sword of the divine ruler, indistinguishable. He was part of the sword, and the rule power within him flowed out madly. Under the shocked gazes of the strong cultivators, a crack appeared in the tip of the 1,000-zhang-long divine sword. Then it started breaking, and the crack grew bigger. The divine sword had started falling apart. Even though it contained the power of the divine human, it was still being destroyed. It couldn't stop the sword of the divine ruler. The divine ruler continued climbing. It stabbed through the 1,000-zhang-long divine sword and went for the atrium. This scene made the pupils of the strong cultivators below constrict. However, they accepted it after. Yi Futian had previously used the power of the divine ruler to defeat Dongwang Diyuan. It naturally wasn't too surprising that he destroyed Di Hao's sword of mankind. The divine ruler was a divine item, even a supreme divine item. Yi Futian had already melded it into his body and was able to use it in all sorts of ways, like carrying an emperor weapon. The divine human retreated up the sky and instantly appeared in the distance. However, the divine ruler was like a bolt of lightning. It stabbed into that area, penetrating it. The massive force caused the sky to crack, destroying all the power gathered there. It probably was not so easy for Di Hao to defeat Yi Futian. Chapter 2769 Break the Illusion. The divine human's body appeared in the sky. It seemed to be omnipresent. Right then, everyone saw that a guqin had appeared in the hand of Di Hao, who transformed into the divine human. It was an imperial arm. Divine light flowed across the guqin, emanating the will of the great emperor. The relic inherited from the human realm. The strong cultivators thought when they saw this scene. The relic of the 8 legions that the human realm controlled was Gandharv. It was known as the god of music. Di Hao must have inherited that relic's heritage and had never used its strength before. Di Hao was also skilled in the way of music. Now that he was using an emperor-level divine instrument, no one knew how mighty he would be. The divine human played the guqin, and divine power instantly entered the guqin. Music notes pulsed out, and a magical curtain of light swept out abruptly. In that instant, many divine humans appeared in the atrium, in the vast land. They were all doing the same action, playing the divine instrument. Yi Futian stood there and was instantly inside an illusory world. The music brought him to the domain of the illusory world. The divine human silhouettes were all around him. It seemed to be a sealed world with no exit. Paired with the dancing music notes, he saw a silhouette of the divine human charge at him with a divine sword. The might was shocking. Yi Futian's body was encircled by emerald divine light, covering his body. Seeing the other party charge, he hacked down with the divine ruler. The huge ruler's silhouette shattered the incoming divine human silhouette, emitting a thunderous sound. However, Yi Futian also frowned. That attack had been solid. It wasn't just an illusion. The piercing music kept dancing. The divine notes were not pleasant at all and extremely grating to the ear, making Yi Futian very uncomfortable. It was even affecting his perception. Many divine human figures walked over from the vast lands simultaneously, walking towards Yi Futian. Each divine human contained the power of the divine human. They wielded divine swords and pointed them at Yi Futian. The divine ruler in Yi Futian's hands danced. In an instant, divine ruler silhouettes appeared and covered the sky, blocking the sun. They circled his body. He released his battle form, and his body also transformed into a god. While the enormous divine ruler danced, a strong domain also appeared in the surroundings. He was the true sovereign within this domain. The many divine human figures attacked with the divine ruler. It did not seem to be a sword of mankind anymore. Instead, it was here to kill gods and slice apart the sky, wanting to utterly destroy the domain where Futian was. Boom! When Futian's battle form waved the divine ruler, the domain was filled with silhouettes of the divine ruler. The divine sword arrived and was shattered instantly. This was an absolute rules domain. Boom, boom, boom. Ruler silhouettes filled the sky, sweeping everything in the surroundings. All the divine human silhouettes were shattered, but the divine human silhouettes seemed endless and infinite. The divine music was still influencing him. The grating noise interfered with him, releasing the will of great path. The world that he saw was even becoming chaotic. The hallucination was getting stronger. At that moment, Futian was sure that he was no longer seeing the true world anymore. The other had used the divine music to create an absolute illusory domain, completely interfering with his judgment. There were strong attacks simultaneously. Must find a way to break through this illusory world, Futian thought. Buddhist light snaked up his body, steadying his heart and stopping his mindset from being disrupted by the illusion. Divine light also appeared in his eyes. There was even emerald divine light in those eyes, transforming them into divine eyes. The divine eyes saw through everything and could see through all illusions in the world to the truth. He could see many illusory scenes fading. Order returned once again to the chaotic world. He could see the figures of divine human charging over, but they weren't fake. Whether illusory or real, the divine human's attacks were tangible. Of course, he saw where Dihao's true body was. He was standing somewhere in the atrium, playing the guqin. More and more frightening attacks fell down, going towards Futian. At that moment, Dihao seemed to feel something, as if being exposed. He looked down at where Futian was but found that Futian wasn't looking at him. After scanning the sky above, he continued to brandish the divine ruler, fending off the attacks from the surrounding divine humans. The extremely cacophonous sounds swept through everything, but the divine human's attacks grew stronger and stronger. The divine ruler also grew bigger and bigger until it covered the sky and Sunday. Boom! There was another huge boom. Under the three-ruler law, countless divine human figures were obliterated. The divine ruler created an ancient path that led to the atrium. Transformed into a heavenly god, Futian continued to wield the divine ruler, attacking upwards once again. The moment this blow was dealt, his figure vanished from the spot. He crossed the space directly and appeared high in the sky. The three-ruler law covered the space, locking a divine human in the domain. That divine human was transformed from Dihao's true self. Dihao's expression was shocked. He retreated, wanting to leave this space, but discovered that he was already within the divine ruler's domain. This blow had covered the sky and sun, locking the space. The situation was the opposite from previously. Boom! Dihao's divine power exploded intensely. As if becoming part of the world here, horrible strength rolled off his body. His divine instrument flew forward and danced, divine light shooting out of the strings to kill Futian. Countless people looked up in the sky. It was like there were two heavenly gods fighting in this domain. The horrible attack pressed down, making the strong cultivators' hearts race. Dihao seemed to have been careless. His domain had become ineffective, and his true form had been hit by Futian directly, causing him to face this situation. If he'd attacked face to face, this would not have happened. As BSE/B. Bang! There was an intense sound from the atrium as if the atrium had exploded. The horrible chi swept through the heavens. The space around Dihao seemed to have exploded. He had become one with the world, but the moment that the divine ruler attacked, that patch of the world had been destroyed directly. Careful! Futian sent Dihao flying with one blow and hadn't stopped yet, but he still spoke. A shocking force then exploded in Futian's direction, forming a huge divine print. It dazzled and blocked down Futian's power of divine ruler. Even though it broke under the divine ruler's attacks, this blow also stopped Futian for a moment. Dihao retreated even further away and his aura combined with the world again. He stared in Futian's direction. An elder stood beside him, a top figure of the human realm. He looked across to Futian again. This guy was able to activate the divine power of the divine ruler in his eyes. That was how he'd broken the illusion and found Di Hao's true form. So unexpected. Futian's gaze swept towards Di Hao. His aura was wavering, and blood seeped from the corner of his lips. He had gotten hurt from that blow, but divine light still circled him. The injury wasn't too serious. Chapter 27 70 Murderous Intent. The elder from the human realm stared at Futian. An astonishing pressure emanated from Futian's figure. He still had no intention of stopping. At the same time, a peerless demonic might roared and churned. This caused the elder to narrow his gaze as he detected an intense sense of danger. Demonic might blocked out the sun, and the heavens turned dim. A demonic catastrophe appeared in the sky. Countless bolts of terrifying lightning struck down. A peerless demonic phantasm appeared. The skies trembled. The elder looked towards where the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace stood in the distance. Over there, Yuxing had transformed into a demon god wielding a demonic saber. He slashed out with the saber, and frighteningly vivid jet-black demonic cracks appeared in the sky. Countless cultivators in the distance raised their heads and saw this slash from the demon god. It slashed across the sky and cleaved the space itself in two. The cultivators of the human realm were so busy dealing with Futian that they seemed to have forgotten that Devil Imperial Palace was eyeing them from the sidelines. After Yuxing saw that Di Hao had been defeated and another person had stepped forward, he naturally could not sit idly anymore. He immediately unleashed the 9 slashes of the demon god. His strike contained the power of the demon god. The elder also had extremely quick reflexes. His will shifted, and the part of the sky before him became a divine wall. Dazzling runes lit up, but the terrifying demonic saber charged down. The destructive, overbearing slash cleaved the wall in two. The wall posed no resistance at all. The saber slashed down, but a gigantic silhouette of a divine human appeared before Di Hao and the elder. It became one with the heavens and the earth as it placed its palms together and caught the domineering demonic saber midway. Saber will slashed down on its figure but did not manage to leave its divine body. An intense rumbling could be heard in the surrounding space. The whole area seemed to explode. A divine light radiated from Di Hao's pupils. This divine human silhouette was summoned by him. It was one with the heavens and the earth and blocked the slash. He was injured by Futian's attack, though it could be said that his injury resulted from his carelessness. After cultivating for eons, he never imagined that a junior would harm him. Buzz! A menacing saber slashed down, blocking out the sky. It seemed to cleave the sky and overlapped with the saber will of the first slash. The space around the divine human kept exploding. Bang! Yuxing took a step forward. The sky trembled, and the figure of the demon god loomed over the space. Its figure became 100 zhang tall. When the third slash came down, the slashes overlapped and merged. Finally, following the frenzied explosions and collapse of the great path around the divine human, the latter gave way. The demonic saber slipped through its palms and slashed down on its figure. Di Hao stood behind the divine human as divine power surged frenziedly into its figure. When he saw that another slash was coming, he wanted to retreat. A terrifying aura circled him and the elder beside him as he prepared to avoid Yuxing's ferocious attack. The jade-green divine halos formed a domain that covered the sky. Futian also walked over towards the two of them. Rumbling could be heard, and the gigantic divine ruler in his hand became the huge divine sword, Heaven's slaying divine sword. It was unstoppable. Di Hao wanted to retreat after attacking? Wasn't that too easy? Futian had not fought side by side with Yuxing in a very long time. Now that they were already heading towards the highest plane together, they had another opportunity to join forces and face their opponents together. Countless divine swords rained down. The divine ruler that became the heaven-slaying divine sword was even more unstoppable. This scene caused the cultivators of the human realm to feel that things were taking a turn for the worst. Futian and Yuxing were both top-level fighters. With their combined strength, they could defeat Di Hao and the Elder. The cultivators of the human realm advanced one by one, attempting to intervene in this battle. Rumble. A menacing demonic catastrophe descended from the heavens. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace suddenly appeared before them. A terrifying domain enveloped the vast space. Yan Gi led the way. He pointed his imperial arm in his hand at the cultivators of the human realm. They were the ones who started the fight, and now they wanted to intervene. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace did not mind joining the fight. There was another reason for Yan Gi to make his move. Although Futian and the Divine Prefecture had deep grudges against each other, it was not the case for the human realm. As for the world of Buddhism, although Futian had killed Xinyan Buddha Lord, the upper echelons did not mind. Futian had the blessing of Buddhas, and there was a Buddha Lord supporting him. Rumor has it that the Buddha Lord had once cultivated with the Buddha. Although Medicine Buddha Lord had also fought today, Yan Gi did not mind pushing Futian to draw a line in the sand with the other party. Futian should stand completely opposed to the human realm. This was also what the Dark Sovereign wanted to do. He ordered Yi Qingyao and the cultivators of the Dark Court to instigate this war. Aside from the war itself, he also wanted to force Futian to pick a side. Yan Gi also had this idea. It was best if Futian and Ziwei Imperial Palace had no option of backing out. Only then could they indeed be considered to have chosen a side. As they blocked the way, the divine ruler came crashing down. Dihao was facing Yuxing's attack. The elder was also a top cultivator of the human realm. He summoned an imperial arm, and a gigantic ancient bell immediately appeared. It rang as it headed up into the sky. In an instant, the sound of the bell reverberated throughout the space, becoming a destructive sound wave that swept across the sky. Many people felt their spiritual souls tremble violently when they heard it. It was as though they were gradually being shattered and were beginning to lose consciousness. Futian similarly sensed that the ancient bell contained divine power. However, the divine ruler that had become the heaven-slaying divine sword still slashed down. It crashed on the ancient bell with a loud clang and sent it flying backward from the shockwave. Be greater than V/B. Be Ven/B. Dong! Another loud dong could be heard. The other party struck the ancient bell once again with his palm. This caused it to grow even more significant. Endless divine light burst forth, and once again charged towards the divine ruler. Clang! The divine ruler that had become the heaven-slaying divine sword was blocked. The other party looked up and swept a glance at Futian. The radiant light that burst forth from this ancient bell imperial arm shot towards the latter. Right then, Dihao saw a pair of frightening eyes. They were the eyes of Futian, and they contained a jade-green light. With just a glance, the eyes brought him into an eye sorcery zone. The elder of the human realm sensed that he had entered into another world, the eye sorcery zone of Futian. He faintly sensed that he was in danger. The cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace immediately took action and sealed off the reinforcements of the human realm. Yu Xing and Futian attacked together, showing no mercy. Their attacks were extremely overbearing. Yu Xing's powerful slash from the demonic saber occupied Dihao, causing him to be unable to shift his attention elsewhere. As for Futian, Dihao sensed murderous intent coming from him. The sound of Buddha suddenly circled in the eye sorcery zone. It filled the space. He wanted to affect Futian with the ancient bell. However, the sound of Buddha was like a spell of the Great Path. It made him very uncomfortable. At the same time, Buddhas appeared in the sky. The various Buddhas attacked simultaneously, sending out all heaven Buddha's seals. The elder put his hands together, and did the same action as the Buddhist cultivators. Loud clanging reverberated across the space. Countless ancient bells clashed with the giant all-heaven Buddha's seals. At the same time, Futian waved the gigantic divine ruler that covered the sky. When the elder saw the shadow of this ruler, an intense sense of danger welled up inside him. Chapter 2771 If hell is not emptied, we are not done. Clang. There was another loud clang as the ancient bell grew to become a humongous golden bell that shrouded the elder's figure. Dazzling divine light flowed over the imperial arm. It was indestructible. The divine ruler crashed onto the imperial arm. A loud clang erupted, causing the ancient bell imperial arm to fly downwards. The entire domain was shaken. The ancient bell flew towards the elder. However, the other party shifted together with it. The power of the great path in his body became one with the bell, and it securely protected him. It is an imperial arm that covers both offense and defense, some people thought when they saw this scene. If that was the case, the elder was undefeatable. Although Futian had powerful combat ability, shattering an imperial arm was far-fetched. It was practically impossible for him to penetrate the elder's defenses. However, Futian coldly snorted. The light of the divine ruler surged out, and formed a gigantic ring that enveloped the ancient bell. Divine light of the great path of space burst forth from the ring. What is he doing? Many people thought as they narrowed their eyes. This ring kept expanding, and then it consumed the ancient bell. The latter sank into the former, and was engulfed by it gradually. When it was defending, the ancient bell lost its attack power. It could not destroy the ring or intercept it. It could only be gradually consumed. As the ancient bell sank into the ring, the parts of it that sank into the latter vanished. It was as though they were no longer present in this space. The expression of the elder within the imperial arm changed slightly. His opponent was consuming his imperial arm with an independent great path of space. By the time he realized this, the spatial ring had already consumed the bell along with him. The ancient bell and the elder inside it both disappeared. Only the ring still remained. It was its own independent space and had swallowed up the other party. Futian waved his hand, and the power of space instantly surged out. The ring immediately traversed space and disappeared from its original spot. It seemed to have been banished by Futian to a far-off place, bringing along the elder and the imperial arm. As a result, what was originally a 2-against-2 scenario became 2 versus 1. Futian and Yuxing were both present, whereas only Dihao remained on the human realm's side. Yuxing and Futian were both powerful combatants. Dihao was already having a hard time dealing with Yuxing alone. If Futian joined in now, what would the outcome be? Futian wielded the divine ruler and advanced. The will of the great path furiously burst forth from his figure. Before this, his battle with Dihao had been interrupted by the elder and later became a 2-on-2 battle. Now that one person had been banished by Futian, he would not hold back. They appeared to be the scariest of demons, as they wielded dark demonic sabers that contained world-destroying might. They unleashed the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. At the same time, Yuxing stood before Dihao and became the demonic lord. His jet-black eyes were terrifying. Under such circumstances, Dihao already had his hands full dealing with Yuxing. He could not spare any attention for Futian. The expressions of the cultivators of the human realm changed when they saw this scene. They wanted to charge over to help, but Yengi and the others were not ordinary figures. The lineup of Devil Imperial Palace was not weak at all. They held off the cultivators of the human realm, preventing them from interfering in Yuxing's battle. Bang! With a loud bang, the silhouette of the divine human was struck again by the divine ruler, and shattered. Futian had attacked. Many gazes shifted towards where Futian stood. His attacks rained down continuously. The phantasms of the divine human were all destroyed. High up in the sky, Yuxing's saber and Futian's divine ruler both slashed down. Rumble. A dull thud could be heard. Even with the divine human unleashing its power to the max, it could not withstand the combined attack of 2 top prominent figures. Dihao was swept away and sent flying outwards. With a dull groan, he vomited fresh blood. Yuxing still did not cease his attacks, sending another saber slashing down. Dihao became the divine human and was gigantic. Divine power surged as he attempted to catch the demonic saber cleaving down on him. However, he also had to withstand a terrifying power. He relied on space, and the power of the heavens and the earth became his own. He formed a wall of the great path around him. This part of the sky also became part of his own body. It lit up with divine halos. The space even seemed to warp as it swept towards Futian's figure. When Futian saw this, he did not stop. He waved the divine ruler and formed a domain. He stood within the absolute space and was not affected by external influences. The divine ruler slashed down furiously and shattered the distorted space. It then struck the wall of the great path and caused the divine human phantasm to once again cough up blood. Its face turned pale. B/B. The demonic saber continued cleaving down, splitting the space like chopping up bamboo. Futian's divine ruler also struck out again, sweeping towards the divine human. They were determined to shake Dihao up. Bang! 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 Endless domineering attacks continued to rain down. The space was exploding frenziedly. The figure of the divine human shattered with a loud bang. Dihao returned to his original form and was sent flying far out into the distance. He kept throwing up fresh blood. He had taken a considerable blow. His injuries were already severe. Yu Xing and Yi Futian still wanted to continue attacking. However, the light of Buddha radiated, and they saw it envelop Dihao's body. His body then disappeared from his original spot. They looked in another direction and saw a Buddha Lord with his palms together. Dihao had been taken away by him. Futian Buddha Lord. Yi Futian greeted the person and stopped pursuing Dihao. Futian Buddha Lord was kind to him in the past. Celerity, which Yi Futian practiced, had the same root as Futian Buddha Lord. To Yi Futian's surprise, the other party saved Dihao. Amitba. Futian Buddha Lord chanted while putting his hands together. He said, "Benefactor Yi, please spare him." Yi Futian similarly put his hands together and said, "Buddha Lord, I am sure you saw what happened. I did not attack him first, but I was forced to defend myself because of his aggressive attacks. This war will surely result in countless deaths in the cultivation world. I hope Benefactor Yi can stop this war." Futian Buddha Lord pleaded. He was full of mercy and had compassion for all living beings. Yi Futian replied, "This war is not something I can stop on my own. Who would listen to me in the 7 realms? Futian Buddha Lord, the world of Buddhism is well aware of the cause of the war among the 7 realms. Why is there a war now?" Yengi stopped fighting as well. He looked at Futian Buddha Lord and questioned. After the collapse of the heavenly path, the cultivation world is supposed to belong to everyone. Yet, why is the devil world trapped underneath the devil abyss? For countless years, we have been suffering due to the devil abyss. Futian Buddha Lord responded. Suffering is part of living. Benefactor Yen, what you said is not something I can solve. If the heavens and the earth give birth to an almighty figure, that person might be able to deliver you from your agony. Yan Gi continued. Since that's the case, wouldn't it be fairer for each realm to take turns guarding the devil abyss? There is a Buddha saying, if I don't go to hell, who will? Could it be that it is just lip service? Futian Buddha Lord did not respond. If hell is not emptied, the devil world is not done, Yan Gi said in a voice as cold as ice. Chapter 2772 Buddha of Destiny. Rumble. Just as Yan Gi finished his sentence, frightening divine light appeared in the heavens. It seemed that a space passage had opened. Beams of unparalleled divine light shone down, forming a unique path. Countless people looked up in that direction. A menacing aura emanated from within the passageway. Who is it? Someone asked in a low voice. Yi Futian and the others also looked up in that direction. Astonishing beams of divine light shot out from the space passage and descended upon the land. Then, existences like ancient gods emerged. Each of them had extremely terrifying auras. Divine power surged from their figures. It was as though ancient gods had descended upon the world. Dihao was stunned upon seeing the arriving cultivators. Then, he regained his senses. He revealed a strange look as he thought to himself, they actually came here. The other top figures from the human realm also narrowed their eyes in surprise as they stared at the arriving cultivators. The cultivators looked down from the heavens above and glanced at the top figures present here. Then, they fixed their gazes on Dihao. Human ancestor has assigned us to come to war, one of them said. Dihao nodded slightly. After that, they swept a glance at Yi Futian, Yi Qingyao, and the rest of their group. Immediately, Yi Futian felt a terrifying might pressing down on him. Many cultivators were puzzled when they sensed this mighty pressure. They had never known of such terrifying figures existing in the human realm. On the other hand, the leaders of the top forces vaguely knew of the existence of these mighty figures. However, their hearts couldn't help but tremble when they finally saw these figures in person. The leaders from the human realm were especially in awe since they could recognize a few faces from the arriving group. Of course, the top figures from the Emperor-level forces were well aware of the identity of the arriving group. Since they were part of the Emperor-level forces, they naturally knew some secrets. Nevertheless, such affairs were not widely known even among members of the Emperor-level forces. Even the insiders did not know the details. Futian also did not have any inside scoop. His brows were tightly knitted as he withstood the might. His facial expression changed slightly. The auras of each of these cultivators were frightening. All of them were near deities. Since when did such a domineering group exist? Moreover, they seemed to be from the same force, the human realm. As expected, mumbled Supreme Sword Lord. He scanned across the stupefied crowd and communicated with Futian via transmitted thoughts. Be careful. They are all monstrous figures from the older generation. Although they appear young, they have been cultivating for ages. They have gone into seclusion for many years. That's why their names no longer ring a bell to the people in the world even though they are still alive. From the looks of it, they have indeed become the hidden triumph cards of the Emperor-level forces. The world has undergone rigorous changes, yet they have actually remained hidden until now. Before this, Futian had heard of similar rumors. The cultivation world had given birth to countless cultivators. Many of them had perished, and only a few of them had cultivated to the strongest plane. Nevertheless, even though they were rare occurrences, there were still numerous old monstrous figures alive. Futian had encountered a few of them before this. These ancient cultivators rarely appeared in public and did not come in contact with anyone. They left right after they seized the relics. Cultivators from the older generation like Supreme Sword Lord could not even be considered ancient. There existed cultivators even more senior than them. From the looks of it, these Emperor-level forces had kept some mighty cultivators hidden as their trump cards. These ancient cultivators were most likely under the direct jurisdiction of human ancestor. Obviously, Dihao was not qualified to command them. Therefore, he was shocked when he saw them. Does the human realm plan to have a showdown? Yen Gi glanced at the ancient cultivators who had just made their appearance. He showed no sign of fear. His eyes were ablaze with intense battle intent. He wanted to experience firsthand exactly how potent these ancient cultivators were. Were they more robust than the cultivators ranked on the current near-deity list? Rumble. An ultimate might suddenly loomed over everyone. A terrifying storm churned above the cultivators. A dark phantasm appeared and covered a part of the sky. It is the Dark Sovereign! Exclaimed the various cultivators as they looked up into the sky. The powerful pressure swept down. However, no one spoke. Only intense pressure filled the skies. Then, terrifying auras appeared one after another. There were a few auras in the sky. Right now, the various cultivators understood that the wills of the great emperors had arrived. If they wanted to, they could offer insights into everything that happened here at any given moment. Amitabha! Just then, a golden beam of the light of Buddha shone down and illuminated this part of the sky. An ancient Buddha made his appearance. He came from another world. Unlike other Buddha lords, who were relatively chubbier, this ancient Buddha was small and gaunt. His face looked extremely old, as though he was close to death. However, he emanated a solemn aura. When the various Buddhas from the Western world spotted him, they bowed and paid their respects to him. Even the arrogant medicine Buddha Lord bowed and greeted the arriving Buddha Lord. Greetings, Buddha Lord, the various Buddhas said as they placed their palms together politely. This caused the various cultivators to narrow their gazes. They shifted their eyes towards the Buddha Lord. They were astonished at the other party's status. Who was this Buddha Lord? Very few people had seen this Buddha Lord before. Nevertheless, a Buddha Lord greeted by the various Buddhas would undoubtedly be of high prestige. This small and skinny Buddha Lord similarly bowed back at the various Buddhas. From his merciful gaze one could not tell that he was a powerful Buddha Lord. "He is a Buddha Lord," uttered some of the top figures of the other forces as they recognized him. They also greeted him with a bow. Even Dongwang Diyuan greeted the Buddha Lord and bowed. She was extremely polite. Clearly, this Buddha Lord had extraordinary standing. Dongwang Diyuan knew who he was and showed him great respect. "He is Buddha of Destiny," Futian secretly thought to himself. He similarly bowed slightly and greeted the Buddha Lord. Buddha of Destiny was an ancient Buddha of the highest level in the world of Buddhism. His status was extraordinary. He was not fond of battles and had never participated in the conflicts of the world. He had devoted his time to comprehending Buddhist techniques. He succeeded in proving his way and became Buddha of Destiny. Buddha of Destiny cultivated one of the 6 Buddhist superpowers, omniscient. Ordinary people could not cultivate this superpower. Even in the world of Buddhism, aside from Buddha of Destiny, no one else had ever successfully cultivated omniscient. That was the case for even the Buddha. "I never imagined that you would appear on the battlefield, Master. What brings you here?" asked Yengi. As a demonic cultivator, he was powerful and overbearing. He could not stand the world of Buddhism and even called them Jaka*ses. He believed they were hypocritical. However, even Yengi showed some level of respect towards Buddha of Destiny and called him Master. "I came to quell this war," said Buddha of Destiny. He lowered his head slightly. He did not have the arrogance of a Buddha Lord and appeared extremely humble. "We are heading towards war among the 6 realms. How do you plan to quell it, Master?" inquired Yengi. Everyone understood that the 6 realms, which had been at peace for centuries, were about to be thrown into war. No one could prevent it from happening. It was inevitable. The heavens and the earth are about to undergo a huge change. It's unwise to increase the number of deaths unnecessarily, Buddha of Destiny declared while putting his hands together. Chapter 2773 Prophecy. For many years, a prophecy had been circulating around. The changes of the world would begin in the original realm. Now, the world was already beginning to change. The ruins of the gods appeared in the world, and the cultivators from various realms surged to the ruins for relics. Countless people went through transformations and improved their cultivation. Many prominent figures surfaced, and the talented young cultivators assumed leadership positions. They slowly rose to the peak of the cultivation world. Cultivators like Dongwang Diyuan, Bihao Yifutian, Yuxing, Yiqingyao, and Ji Wudao gradually reached their heyday. Moreover, they would surely attain even more glorious achievements in the future. However, this was naturally not the end of the changes in the world. How would the future unfold? Currently, many people had already found out that this prophecy originated from the western heaven of the world of Buddhism. Since that was the case, the prophet who made the statement was most likely Buddha of Destiny, who now stood before them. Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient. No one knew how proficient he was in this Buddhist superpower, but it was highly likely that he could catch a glimpse of the future. His prophecy about the changes to the world had come to pass. Had Buddha of Destiny foreseen even more significant changes occurring? Yengi roared. The changes of the world might have been triggered by the War of the 6 Realms. It is an inevitable trend and cannot be stopped. The war is also a part of the changes. Buddha of Destiny responded. The world will soon welcome even more major changes. Everything will be reformed. This war is not an inevitable trend. The great emperors are the mightiest existences in the cultivation world, and they rule over the 6 realms. They view others as their chess pieces. However, all living beings are equal. Since the ending has been decided, why should we sacrifice lives in vain? If war erupts, countless cultivators from the 6 realms will perish. Why should we put ourselves through this agony? After Buddha of Destiny said this, he bowed towards the high heavens and pleaded. Great emperors, please hear my plea. Please cease fighting so that we can avoid a disaster. Even though he looked gaunt, the light of Buddha shone brightly from his figure. He emanated a golden light, which caused the crowd to revere him. Buddha of Destiny rarely appeared in public. After so many years, very few people recognized him. Even if he traveled around, such a scraggy elder would not draw anyone's attention. However, he had come out from seclusion this time to beg for the compassion of the great emperors so that a war could be avoided. This war was a war among the imperial palaces of the 6 realms. If it continued, it would brew into something larger in scale and expand to other places. Currently, this continent had become a battlefield. If the fighting continued, countless cultivators would lose their lives. Buddha of Destiny had great compassion. Hence, he had come out of seclusion and rushed here to plead with the great emperors to stop fighting. Dazzling, colorful lights covered a spot in the sky. A phantasm appeared from the lights, and the figure actually bowed towards Buddha of Destiny. He seemed to have great respect for the latter. He said politely, "Since Buddha Lord has spoken, I, Dong Wang, will surely oblige. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture will withdraw from this war." His voice reverberated in the vast space. Everyone ceased fighting and looked up to the sky. Even the great emperor had personally come. Therefore, there was no need for them to continue battling. The crowd wondered about the identity of the Buddha Lord who had spoken. Even Dong Wang the Great bowed to him. Was the Buddha of the Western Heaven here? "Many thanks, Your Highness," Buddha of Destiny responded as he bowed towards the sky. Dong Wang the Great gave the world of Buddhism face by being the first to second Buddha of Destiny's plea. After all, he used to seek the way in the world of Buddhism, so he was considered half a Buddhist disciple. "All of you come back," another voice sounded. Immediately, the few ancient cultivators, who had come from the human realm, transformed into beams of light and left the battlefield in a dash. They had come for the war. Their retreat meant that Human Ancestor also supported Buddha of Destiny's plea. Although Human Ancestor did not show himself, his voice could be heard from the heavens. "This time, Dark Sovereign instigated the war of the 6 realms. Therefore, I ordered my men to stop his massacre by killing his members. I have done so to prevent the masses from being killed in vain. Since Buddha of Destiny has spoken, the human realm is willing to take a step back. However, if the dark world still refuses to stop, the human realm will purge the darkness to restore order to the world." "Many thanks, Human Ancestor," Buddha of Destiny said as he bowed again towards the sky. Human Ancestor had an extraordinary status because he was the most ancient great emperor among the 6. He had been very courteous with Buddha of Destiny by commanding his men to stop fighting. The stance of the world of Buddhism went without saying. Buddha of Destiny was a member of the upper echelon in their world. His stance represented that of their world. The righteous sides, including the human realm, the Western heavenly world, and the Divine Prefecture, were all willing to stop the war. It was all up to the Devil World, the Dark World, and the empty Divine Realm. "Where did that Jack *SS go? Why are you the only one here?" Another voice sounded from the sky. Terrifying demonic might accompanied the voice, churning and roaring. Obviously, the will of the Devil Emperor had arrived. The Jack *SS that he mentioned was undoubtedly the Buddha, who was as powerful as the great emperors. "To my knowledge, the Buddha is currently cultivating in the colorless heaven. Hence, he has not come over this time," Buddha of Destiny replied while bowing in the direction where the Devil Emperor's voice sounded. He was not offended by the way the other party addressed the Buddha. The 6 great emperors were supreme existences on another level compared to the rest of them. Buddha of Destiny had no say in their speech or actions. "What is he trying to do? Purge himself?" the Devil Emperor teased coldly. "I have a question for you. Since you prophesied that the world is about to change, exactly what kind of changes will it go through? Could it be that there will be new great emperors?" "I dare not reveal the secrets of the future," Buddha of Destiny responded. "Don't try to play tricks with me. You don't dare to reveal the secrets of the future? In that case, who was the one that came up with the prophecy?" the Devil Emperor chided coldly. "That Jacka *S is not here now. What if I insist that you answer my question? Devil Emperor, you are a great emperor, yet you bully a Medicine Buddha Lord joined the conversation while looking in the direction where the Devil Emperor was. "Shut up. You are not qualified to speak here," the Devil Emperor interrupted him. With a domineering tone, he continued to pressure Buddha of Destiny, saying, "Of course, you can choose not to reveal anything. I won't attack you. But I will not agree to your request of withdrawing my troops. Rumor has it that once a cultivator has cultivated omniscience to its utmost limit, they can see through the fates of everyone. The superpower itself is full of wonders. Even though I don't believe in it, I am still somewhat curious. Master, exactly what kind of changes did you foresee?" Human Ancestor joined the conversation. He sounded interested. Everyone knew that Human Ancestor did not believe in fate or destiny. He managed the order of the human world and thought that human will was stronger than destiny. According to legends, Human Ancestor was an ordinary man in the past. During his era, there were way too many talented figures. He was not exceptional, yet he was firmly rooted in his belief. During the age when the gods ruled over the world, he remained steadfast to his belief that the gods were merely very powerful cultivators. He insisted that once humans cultivated to their greatest potential, they could be on par with the gods, even with their mortal flesh. Humans were comparable to gods. The validity of this legend had yet to be verified. However, one could tell the belief of Human Ancestor based on this tale. He lived out his faith by ruling over the human realm and creating the divine human. Humans could also be gods. The divine human was formed from this belief. Therefore, Human Ancestor did not believe in the concept of fate preached in the world of Buddhism. Buddha of Destiny had a vision about the future, and he prophesied that the world would be changed. However, Human Ancestor did not trust a single word of it. "I want to know too," said the evil emperor as his face surfaced in the sky. Now that 3 great emperors had expressed their interest in this matter, Buddha of Destiny would most likely be forced to reveal some details, even though the former might not have evil intentions to harm him if he chose to remain silent. Amitabha. Buddha of Destiny put his palms together and said, "Everything in the world will be reformed. The age of the gods will come once again." His voice was solemn. As soon as he dropped this information, the crowd went silent. Nobody spoke a word. Everyone, including the 6 great emperors, focused their attention on Buddha of Destiny. Everything in the world would be reformed? The age of the gods would come once again. It was the age of the gods. Would they get the chance to experience a prosperous era like back in ancient times? After Buddha of Destiny spoke, his aura actually withered. He became even more feeble, as though his aura was being weakened continuously. "Buddha Lord!" exclaimed the cultivators of the Western heavenly world when they saw this scene. B/B. However, Buddha of Destiny behaved as though nothing had happened. He was not bothered by the changes at all. He continued to radiate a solemn light of Buddha. "All things on earth have their destiny. I pried into the future and revealed a secret, so I will face the consequences," Buddha of Destiny said in a low voice. "How will the world be reformed?" Dark Sovereign's voice echoed in space. His goal was to reform the order of the world by allowing the world to be consumed by darkness. When it happened, everything would be reformed and this chaotic era would end. Now, what Buddha of Destiny prophesied was actually similar to what he imagined. Hence, he was curious to find out what exactly the former envisioned. "Master is already in such a state. Dark Sovereign, I think we should stop asking." Dongwang the Great interceded. Dark Sovereign replied nonchalantly, "Since he has pried into the future, it doesn't make much difference for him to reveal a bit more." Buddha of Destiny shook his head and said, "I am ashamed of myself. My power is not strong enough. I could only catch a glimpse of what would happen. As for how the world will be reformed, I have no idea either. Do you really have no clue, or are you keeping it a secret from us?" Dark Sovereign continued to pressure Buddha of Destiny. "Dark Sovereign, as the ruler of darkness, you should stop putting Buddha of Destiny in a tough spot." Human Ancestor intervened too. He said, "Even though Buddha of Destiny has predicted the changes of the world, I still firmly believe that fate is illusory. Humans are the existences who have control over all order." Clearly, Human Ancestor had his doubts about Buddha of Destiny's words. What Human Ancestor said is true. With you controlling the order of the human realm, there will not be any new great emperors. Someone mocked. The speaker was none other than the Devil Emperor. The crowd was perplexed because of his words. What did he mean? As long as human ancestor oversaw the order of the human realm, there would not be any new great emperors. What did the Devil Emperor mean by this? Human ancestor was not perturbed by the Devil Emperor's mocking. Instead, he calmly responded, Devil Emperor, you worry too much. Even though I don't believe in fate, I believe in history repeating itself. Since there was an age of the gods in ancient times, I am not surprised if it makes a comeback in the future. On the contrary, I look forward to it. I also think that the age of the gods will soon come again. All the cultivators present in this continent were listening to their conversation quietly. They were shocked by the news. The age of the gods was something of the ancient past. Since the collapse of the heavenly path, there had not been any new great emperors. How many people have managed to become great emperors since then? Becoming a great emperor was a common goal pursued by all the cultivators in the world. Even though this goal seemed almost impossible, countless cultivators still tried their best and worked hard towards achieving. Now, these colossal figures were discussing the age of the gods. Buddha of Destiny also prophesied its reenactment. A new era would come, and it would be a glorious one. This was definitely exciting news. What role would they play in this new era? Chapter 2774 Fate of the Emperor for 5 Centuries. I look forward to the coming of the age of the gods, Dongwang the Great said. After cultivating for so many years, I often wonder how prosperous ancient times were. Is that so? Dark Sovereign said mockingly. How did Emperor Yiqing perish back in the day? Emperor Yiqing was the taboo of the divine prefecture. Others did not dare to discuss this matter, but not Dark Sovereign. Dongwang the Great was stunned momentarily. He remained silent and did not say anything. Amitabha. Just then, Buddha of Destiny said, I wish to offer your Highness Dongwang another piece of advice. Buddha Lord, please advise, replied Dongwang the Great as he nodded slightly. He still acted humble and polite, showing Buddha of Destiny great respect. Buddha of Destiny said, Your Highness Dongwang once cultivated in the world of Buddhism. At that time, you had yet to become a great emperor. Therefore, I was able to take a peek into your destiny. I noticed that you have the fate of the emperor. However, I discovered something else, which I have never told you before. Now I want to remind you. Dongwang the Great revealed a strange look. The other great emperors also listened to this conversation attentively. Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient, and could pry into someone's destiny. However, if the other party were a powerful figure, such as a great emperor, he would not be qualified to see into the former's future. Buddha of Destiny was not that proficient yet. Nevertheless, the crowd did not doubt his words when he said he saw a vision related to Dongwang the Great when the latter cultivated in the world of Buddhism. Speaking of which, the world of Buddhism placed high importance on Dongwang the Great in the past. He received personal guidance from the Buddha. Moreover, Buddha of Destiny envisioned him becoming a great emperor. Please speak your mind, Dongwang the Great said. Your Highness Dongwang is peerless in the divine prefecture, and you have the fate of the emperor. However, it will only last for 5 centuries. As Buddha of Destiny said this, he put his palms together and lowered his head. His words shocked countless people. The crowd, especially the cultivators from the divine prefecture, were greatly shocked. Their hearts trembled frenziedly. Dongwang the Great's fate as the emperor would only last for 5 centuries? He would be peerless for 5 centuries in the divine prefecture. Did it mean that his reign over the divine prefecture would only last for 5 centuries? This prophecy came like a bolt from the blue for the cultivators of the divine prefecture. It had been more than 400 years since Dongwang the Great unified the divine prefecture. There was not much time left if the deadline was 5 centuries. These decades would pass by in a snap. Therefore, one could imagine how shocking the news was. The age of the gods would come. Who would terminate Dongwang the Great's rule over the divine prefecture? For a moment, the vast space fell into dead silence. No one spoke a word, as though all of them had been stunned. Then Buddha of Destiny continued, Of course, This was only what I saw in the past. Even though omniscient is profound, it is not 100% accurate. The fate of a person can be changed. It is the same for destiny. Perhaps the destiny of your highness has changed after you became a great emperor. Your fate of the emperor might have been prolonged. What I envisioned in the past might have changed. If everything in the world is destined, I will go with the flow, Dongwang the Great said calmly. As he said this, he cast a glance at Yi Futian. Quite a number of people, especially the few great emperors, caught him doing so. That proud son of heaven was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing. He was already on his way to becoming a great emperor. Could he achieve his target in the remaining few decades? Would he then end the reign of Dongwang the Great? This seemed rather impossible. No matter how heaven-defying Yi Futian's talents were, for him to become a great emperor in decades was far-fetched. Furthermore, even if he successfully became a great emperor, exactly how would he end Dongwang the Great's rule over the divine prefecture? Dongwang the Great had been a great emperor for centuries. He had extraordinary talents. Even if Yi Futian caught up in terms of status, he would most likely still not be a match for the former. After catching Dongwang the Great glancing at Yi Futian, the other great emperors also looked in the direction where Yi Futian stood. Would he become a threat to Dongwang the Great? Human ancestors spoke up. Dongwang, you don't have to care too much about this. I never believed in destiny. Besides that, as Buddha of Destiny said, you have proven your way at the emperor plane for more than 4 centuries now. Your fate of the emperor is not something that can be shaken so easily. You should not be troubled by this prophecy that is based on something illusory. Responded Dongwang the Great as he nodded his head. I will not be affected by this. If such a day does come where the end of my fate of the emperor heralds the dawn of the next age of the gods, I am willing to play my part. He added, however, Buddha Lord, I am still grateful for your reminder. Amitabha, recited Buddha of Destiny. He then said, I thank you, great emperors, for granting my wish and avoiding this catastrophe. This can be considered a contribution of mine. Farewell. Wait! A voice called out right then, interrupting Buddha of Destiny. The Devil Emperor had spoken, saying, Since you read that Dongwang had the fate of the emperor back then, how many people possess the fate of the emperor here today? Buddha of Destiny lowered his head and replied, There will be consequences if I reveal too much of the secrets of the future. I dare not speak so as not to disturb fate. Devil Emperor, please leave it as it is, implored Dongwang the Great. If there truly is fate and reincarnation, by right, a few people here today should be in hell, mocked the Devil Emperor. Amitabha, uttered Buddha of Destiny as he bowed. The light of Buddha shone, and his figure disappeared as he left this place. Although Buddha of Destiny had left, the rest of the crowd was still in awe at his prophecy. Only around 40 years of Dongwang the Great's 5 centuries of fate of the emperor remained. Would the next age of the gods begin in the coming 40 or more years? What sort of prosperous era would the future bring if that was the case? I am looking forward to this. I hope that his prophecy will come true, said the Devil Emperor with a smile. We are leaving. After he said this, Yengi, Yuxing, and the Devil World's other cultivators began to leave. The demonic cultivators in the ruins continent also gradually left and ceased fighting. Oh, by the way, Dongwang, do not forget your promise from before to not touch Yi Futian. The Ziwei segmentum that he represents is now a superpower in the world. I hope that the great emperors here will not stoop so low as to take action yourselves. Otherwise, don't blame me for finding fault with you. The Devil Emperor threatened before he left. Then, the demonic cloud churned and roared as his will disappeared from the space. Before he left, he warned the great emperors from acting against Yi Futian. I second his notion. The great emperors should not interfere in the battles here. If anyone breaks this agreement, please pardon us for not showing your forces mercy. Dark Sovereign threatened. There were 2 great emperors siding with Yi Futian. Their statements seemed to have decided Yi Futian's stance. He would be on the same side as the Devil World and the Dark World. They stood opposing the Divine Prefecture, the human realm, and the world of Buddhism. The wills of the 6 great emperors disappeared one by one. The sky returned to normal. The war stirred up in Ruin's continent was quelled by Buddha of Destiny. A calamity had been avoided. However, the conversation among the great emperors and Buddha of Destiny had a profound impact on everyone present. Chapter 2775 Reminder. Dongwang the Great had the fate of the emperor for a mere 500 years. What would happen 40 years later? Who would be the first to cross the path of the emperors? Many cultivators remained there after the emperors left. Futian began to contemplate the words he heard earlier. Dongwang the Great turned to stare at him with a complicated expression after hearing Buddha of Destiny's prophecy. Still, Futian could not see through Dongwang the Great's mind. Would the latter decide to eliminate the last one day? Besides, he understood why Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign threatened Dongwang the Great by saying they would protect him. After all, he was the nemesis of Dongwang the Great. So, it was only natural that they would aid the rise of someone who could threaten the reign of Dongwang the Great. Even though he still hadn't reached the highest tier of cultivation, Buddha of Destiny's prophecy might very well be fulfilled in him. Nevertheless, taking his life was not an easy task if the great emperors did not involve in it personally. With the threatening presence of Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign, Dongwang the Great and human ancestor could not dispose of him in person, even if they wanted to do so. Futian remained on the same spot. Likewise, Dongwang Diyuan did not leave that place as well. While she was staring at him, the cultivators of Divine Prefecture's Dongwang Imperial Palace were doing the same also, including Li Daoshou, Fang Ru, and the like. The onlookers could feel an intense killing intent through their eyes. Even before the prophecy of Buddha of Destiny, Futian had made himself the common enemy of Divine Prefecture when he injured Dongwang Diyuan. The absolute opposition between him and the Divine Prefecture only further worsened the situation. Furthermore, Buddha of Destiny's prophecy might be referring to Futian. With that in mind, they would want Futian dead. Should Dongwang the Great be generous enough not to finish him off, they would still help the former ease his burden by eradicating the source of the problem. Although the likelihood of Futian dethroning Dongwang the Great was virtually nil, they found it hard to believe that the former could threaten the god who they revered greatly. Futian, a lot of things have happened between you and Divine Prefecture, yet Dongwang Imperial Palace had never once actually tried to kill you, Dongwang Diyuan uttered coldly. Now that you've made your stand and chose the darkness, Divine Prefecture will not pull its punches anymore from this moment onward. Oh, wait a minute. Did you ever pull your punches before? Futian asked casually. Are you referring to the time in the restricted area? Upon hearing that, Dongwang Diyuan shot Futian a sharp glare and chided. From now on, Futian will be the common enemy of the Divine Prefecture. When opportunity presents itself, kill him without mercy! Her voice echoed throughout the atmosphere. The Dongwang Imperial Palace and Divine Prefecture cultivators were glaring at Futian with bloodshot eyes while exuding their killing intent. Simultaneously, a powerful ancient god clan cultivator, who stood far away, was staring at Futian without hiding their murderous Biora/B. Futian had finally become the common enemy of Divine Prefecture. So, they wished to witness how he would survive in the years to come. Whether he could stay alive for the next 40 years or not was the question no one could answer. After speaking, Dongwang Diyuan led her people and left. Human Realms Di Hao and the others glanced at Futian for a while and went away with their subordinates. Benefactor Yi, your fate is tied to Buddhism. Please do not neglect your studies in Buddhist doctrine, Futian Buddha Lord urged. I will surely heed your advice, Buddha Lord. Futian put his palms together and replied. The light of Buddha illuminated around his body, proving that he did not forget the teachings of Buddhism. However, Medicine Buddha Lord snorted and left in displeasure. At once, the Buddhist cultivators followed him and departed. The empty Divine Realm cultivators left after the alliance of Divine Prefecture bunch took their leave. Lord Shaman turned to look at Futian. He had schemed to deal with Futian previously, but he tried to eliminate Qingyao. Yet, he noticed that he might be wrong since Dark Sovereign's faith in Qingyao was more profound than his expectation. he had caused Yi Futian to stand at their side. With that, it was even more arduous for him to deal with Yi Futian. Even Dark Sovereign would not allow him to do so. "Let's go," he announced. Following that, he withdrew from the scene with the other cultivators. "Brother." Yi Qingyao glanced at Yi Futian, who nodded at her with a smile. Shortly after, she went away from that place as well. The cultivators from Devil World did the same, but Yu Xing approached Yi Futian instead. "What was the meaning of this? What was Buddha of Destiny trying to do?" Yu Xing remarked in an upset tone. That prophecy had put Yi Futian in a dire situation because the number of people who wished to kill him increased significantly. "Omniscient," Yi Futian stated as he looked into the distance. Buddha of Destiny was the only great Buddha who had successfully cultivated omniscient. Therefore, he could peep through destiny and see a glimpse of the future. Who could even read what was in his mind? Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient and karma. I believe he knew the karma of his action. Perhaps he had come to reorient the cause and effect. A crisp voice could be heard beside Yi Futian. The voice's owner was Hua Qingqing. She was the wick of Buddha Lord. Hence, she might be the one who could best understand the thought of Buddhist monks. Is our destiny predestined? Or is man the master of their fate? Yi Futian asked a question that perhaps was meant for himself. Buddhists believed in destiny. Although Dong Wang the Great had studied the Buddhist doctrine, did he believe in karma and destiny? Human ancestors, on the other hand, did not believe in those. As the oldest great emperor, he had always thought that man was the master of their fate. Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign were dubious toward those things. Perhaps they only believed the parts that were convenient to them. Everything we have experienced determines the fate of the future. And the course of the future is the result of our past. That is what karma is in Buddhism in a nutshell. Hua Qingqing explained in a soft voice, causing Yi Futian to ponder at her words. Buddhist doctrine is profound and mysterious. Even now, it is still hard to understand its true meaning. Yi Futian sighed. A while later he added, "Let's go." "Okay." The crowd nodded and went back to where they came from. Yi Futian led his group back to Yi Imperial Palace after that. The war in Ruins continent had finally subsided. All the cultivators returned to their habitations. Although a temporary truce was called due to the appearance of Buddha of Destiny, there was no telling when the next conflict would break out again in the future. The War of the Six Realms was a growing trend. The existence of Ruins continent had accelerated its development. Qi Xiangang asked for Yi Futian the next day after the latter's return to Yi Imperial Palace. Without delay, Yi Futian went to the dwelling of Qi Xiangang. At that time, the latter was playing chess with his first disciple, Yan Yuan, while Fei Xue was watching their game. "Teacher, brother," Yi Futian greeted. The moment Yan Yuan saw Yi Futian, he immediately got up to empty the seat for the latter. But Yi Futian walked to the sidelines and said, "Brother, please have a seat. I will stay here and watch." Yan Yuan nodded and remained taciturn. Then he continued to play chess with Qi Xiangang. "Futian, do you still remember the time when I was still the imperial advisor of Dali while you were in Daxia?" Qi Xiangang asked. "It's still fresh in my memory." Yi Futian nodded. "A century has passed in the blink of an eye. Time really flies. I could barely remember the past events." Qi Xiangang uttered with a broad smile. "I've learned many things from you back then. Those moments will be etched on my memory forever. I swear I'll never forget them." Yi Futian promised as he showed a smile on his face. It might not be a happy moment of his life, but it was still nostalgic in retrospect. Although he went undercover to Dali, Qi Xiangang, the imperial advisor, still accepted him as a disciple. Even after his cover was blown, Dali's imperial advisor had ordered Yan Yuan to send him back to Daxia personally. Qi Xiangang nodded. "Do you still remember the principle that I had upheld back in Dali?" Yi Futian bowed his head and set his eyes on Qi Xiangang with a smile. "I know what you are trying to tell me, teacher. That's good. I'm not worried about you. The world out there is a complicated place. Sometimes you might lose sight of yourself," Qi Xiangang remarked. Chapter 2776 Chat. Yi Futian understood what Qi Xiangang was trying to imply. After all, he had been walking a different path due to his conflict with Divine Prefecture and Dongwang the Great. He seemed to have become the ally of Dark World and Devil World currently. Devil World and Dark World emerged themselves in the world as destroyers. They invaded Divine Prefecture to stir up the War of the Six Realms. Although each of them had their reasons, it was an undisputed truth. Teacher, what is your opinion about the Six Realms and the Six Great Emperors? Yi Futian asked. Since they talked about this topic, he became interested in knowing Qi Xuangang's thoughts on this subject. Although his cultivation level was way higher than his master's, his foresight might not be as good as his teacher's. There is no right and wrong about someone's standpoint. However, the result of it is a whole new ball game altogether, Qi Xiangang explained. Devil World and Dark World may have their standing on this subject. Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign have the things they want and need to do. After all, everyone has their responsibility to bear. They have their decisions to make and things to consider. However, Devil World's invasion in Divine Prefecture did start a war. On the other hand, Dark World's conduct is worse than the former. I believe you still remember its attack in 3,000 Realms of the Great Path. I got it. Yi Futian nodded. I've never once thought that I belonged to their side. Hence, I stirred a conflict up with Dark World a while ago. His teacher must have worried that he would stand by their side and play a part in perpetuating their evil deeds. The forces of Divine Prefecture are to be called out as well. The 6 ancient god clans, with Divine Prefecture as their head, had invaded Ziwei Segmentum countless times. Besides, several Buddhist forces were not playing nice with you as well. Their deeds could never be erased completely. I did not know about your conflict with Dongwang the Great. So, I will not ask you to return good for evil. You will repay a favor with kindness. You will get even with someone for the harm caused to you. One should always segregate gratitude and resentment well. Yet, it would help if you never lost your moral compass. Don't ever lose sight of yourself. As for the 6 great emperors, I know a thing or two about them. I cultivated in the land under the governance of Divine Prefecture before, so I've heard things about Dongwang Diyuan. I am not sure what happened between Emperor Yi Qing and him in the past. So, I will refrain from further comments. After he ended the upheaval in Divine Prefecture, he wanted to see martial art and cultivation thrive and hoped for the cultivators to assess better cultivation methods. I believe that part is true. Qi Xiangang continued. Everyone has a different personality. There is almost no one with absolute good or evil personality. Observing someone from a different perspective will lead you to a different conclusion. Of course, these are all the things that I see and understand. The remaining great emperors are legends. Speaking of which, how many of them have you met before? What do you think of them? Devil Emperor reigns in Devil Abyss. He is a pure demonic cultivator. He has a strong obsession with breaking the shackle of imprisonment by heavenly path in Devil World. He wanted to free their bondage and lead Devil World out of Devil Abyss. Yi Futian said. Dark Sovereign might have a dark past. Thus, he became pessimistic like he is now. He, too, has a powerful fixation. He thinks that the world is full of hypocrites and darkness. So it needs to be reformed. He believes that true light can only exist from absolute darkness. I don't know much about the other 3 great emperors. Yi Futian clarified. After all, he did not come in contact much with Lord of all Buddhas, human ancestor, and evil emperor. Okay. Qi Xiangang bowed his head. Those who have reached the pinnacle in cultivation must have extremely firm convictions in their hearts. Their beliefs are so strong that it is unshakable. They believe that their ideology is the only truth. So do Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign. Should that be the case, Dongwang the Great, the Buddha, human ancestor, evil emperor, too, have their beliefs that cannot be shaken. Yeah. Yi Futian nodded in agreement. What was Dongwang the Great's belief and conviction? What about human ancestor? During the conflict, human ancestor declared that he did not believe in destiny. Since he was named human ancestor, he must have believed in himself only. So, what about the Buddha and evil emperor? Futian, have you ever pondered about your belief? What kind of person do you want to be when you become a great emperor? Qi Xiangang asked. Me? Yi Futian murmured. He had thought about that in the Dark Court because he overcame the dark memories that Dark Sovereign implanted into his mind. The man knew he could pull it off only because of his experience. Although he had many dark encounters in the past, he had met several people who changed the course of his life. Among them, Hua Fenglu, Mr. Du, Sage Dojan, and Qi Xiangang were the ones who had impacted him the most. What kind of person do you wish to see me become, teacher? Yi Futian asked with a light smile. With your aptitude, you will surely gain enlightenment to walk the path of the great emperor. I wish that you will not only be admired and feared by the people but also be revered by them and become their faith that will impact many generations to come. Qi Xiangang answered. Teacher, you expect a lot from me, Yi Futian remarked while curling the corners of his lips up. If you are just an average Joe, I will only wish that you will be yourself. But you are different. You can rise to the top and stand above all. When that happens, your will affect many people, even the world order. Hence, I ask a lot from you, Qi Xiangang responded. Devil Emperor, Dark Sovereign, and Dongwang the Great influenced the realms under their reigns with their wills. Dark Sovereign believed in absolute darkness. Hence, Dark World was born. When one stood on the summit, their mindsets and beliefs would influence more than just themselves. Well, this is my selfish desire, in a way, Qi Xiangang uttered, flashing a smile. No. Yi Futian shook his head. You will always be my teacher and my pride. Yi Futian would never forget the extraordinary imperial advisor of Dali, and the saying that went. As the heavens' movement is ever vigorous, so must a wise man ceaselessly strive. Likewise, Qi Xiangang stated while glancing at Yi Futian in contentment. The teacher and disciple duo were equally proud of each other. Guess I will take my leave now, Yi Futian announced while Qi Xiangang nodded. Brother Fei Xue, you should stay with our teacher. After speaking, Yi Futian went away. Yan Yuan, Fei Xue, and Qi Xiangang were all smiles as they looked at his silhouette. Although he did not answer yet, it was not all that important. The three of them had faith in him. After that, Qi Xiangang and Yan Yuan went on with their chess game. The former moved one of his chess pieces strenuously. Will Futian reach that tier within 40 years? Yan Yuan uttered. Even if he successfully dislodged Dongwang the Great, I believe he would not write off all the things the latter did for divine prefecture. Yeah. Qi Xiangang nodded. He can differentiate past kindness from old scores, a contribution from a blunder. Chapter 2777 The Crisis of Political Marriage. There was temporary peace in the world after the War of the Six Realms. Although cultivators across the known realms would stir up conflicts from time to time, they did not cause any chaos. After all, they were just a bunch of disunited rabbles without emperor-level forces turning the tide of war. Yi Futian did not drown himself in cultivation during that time. Instead, he invited cultivators from Ziwei Segmentum and 9 supreme regions to Ruin's continent by repeatedly opening the portal between realms and leading them to the destination. In doing so, more cultivators had the chance to enter the Ruins continent for their cultivation. Even though they were not powerful enough to fight for the cultivation resources with other stronger individuals, the concentration level of spiritual qi on the land was incomparable with the other realms. As the spiritual qi in God's continent increased and expanded unceasingly, it eventually covered every known region in Original Realm. Even the cultivators in 3,000 realms of the Great Path had already noticed the changes in this part of the world. No one knew what would happen at the end of the line. They were unsure if that change had anything to do with the prophecy of Buddha of Destiny. That day, Fang Gai brought a piece of big news to the people in Yi Imperial Palace. Gossips about the information had already been spread even before the War of the Six Realms. The human realm's representative, Di Hao, proposed to the princess of Dongwang Imperial Palace, Dongwang Diyuan. The former wanted a political marriage between the human realm and the divine prefecture. Words spread like wildfire among the cultivators in Ruin's continent, and caused an uproar. All the 6 realms were shaken to their very core. Rumor had it that all the imperial palaces had set their eyes on this topic, including several great emperors. According to some scoops, the said great emperors had already made their way to Donghuang Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture to see the outcome of the political marriage. If that political marriage came to pass, it would bring about a new era. Yi Futian was surprised after hearing the news. All the key figures in Yi Imperial Palace gathered for a meeting right after knowing about it. They were all focused on it, although it was somewhat unrelated to some of them. After all, the impact of the story was too significant. Yi Futian looked at the ground below from the sky stairwell of Yi Imperial Palace. Many people could be seen rushing in his direction. Immediately, he knew words had already gotten out. "I presume all of you have heard about it?" Yi Futian asked. "That's right." Everyone nodded in unison. "What do you think about this?" Yi Futian questioned. They had a conflict with the cultivators from the human realm and the Divine Prefecture previously. Should the political marriage occur, it would not be a good thing for Yi Futian and Yi Imperial Palace. The entire cultivation world was taken aback by the prophecy of Buddha of Destiny a while ago. Donghuang the Great's fate of the Emperor is only 500 years. If that turns out to be true, he did not have much time left. Human realm's marriage proposal is a sensitive topic at this time of day. Human Ancestor is sending a message saying that he is willing to work hand in hand with Donghuang the Great to face uncertainty. Emperor Nan remarked. Yeah. Lord Taixian nodded. If Donghuang the Great is wary of the prophecy, forming an alliance with human realm through political marriage does more good than harm. Even if something were to happen to him, Donghuang Diyuan would still have a place to belong. Human realm picks the perfect timing. The 6 realms were divided into 2 sides previously, each formed their alliance. Yet, a union as such could not hold a candle to one created through political marriage. Human Ancestor was sending a message through this. Do you think Donghuang the Great will agree to this proposal? Yi Futian queried. Everyone had a stern expression immediately after hearing that. However, they were not the only people who were pondering this question. At that point, every cultivator in Ruin's continent, including the elites in the 6 realms, was doing the same. Everyone was waiting for the answer. Countless cultivators in Ruin's continent talked about this topic after hearing this news while waiting for the latest update from Divine Prefecture. No matter what the answer might be, it would undoubtedly cause yet another tumult. It did not matter if Donghuang the Great agreed to the proposal, or not. Either way, it would still change the course of the 6 realms' future. If Donghuang the Great agreed, their alliance would become stronger. But if he declined, their coalition would fall apart. Many cultivators were gathered under the gateway from Divine Prefecture to Ruin's continent. They were all waiting to hear the answer. Once the people in Divine Prefecture got the word, they would bring the news to Ruin's continent first. All the cultivators engaged in battles declared a ceasefire after getting to know about this. Through this alone, one could imagine how huge the impact of the news was. After hearing Yi Futian's question, Emperor Nan replied, I think Donghuang the Great will turn it down. Emperor Nan had always revered Donghuang the Great. Apart from the clash of the twin great emperors, the latter did not have any shortcomings. Although the former was considered the enemy of Divine Prefecture after following Yi Futian, he still thought Donghuang the Great would decline the proposal. I seconded that, Lord Taixian stated. He will decline, a voice said. It was the former Palace Lord of West Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture's ancient god clan. Human Ancestor plans to restrain Donghuang the Great through this proposal. I tell you, it's impossible. Donghuang the Great will reject him, he added. The tone of his voice was brimmed with confidence. After all, as the helmsman of ancient god clan, he understood Donghuang the Great pretty well. Many people voiced their opinions. Yet, all of them thought that Donghuang the Great would decline. Yi Futian was taken by surprise upon hearing that. It seemed like Donghuang the Great had impacted many people with his incredible charisma. Let's go out and wait for the news, Yi Futian uttered. After that, he led his people out of Yi Imperial Palace all the way to Outer Realms to wait for the result from the Divine Prefecture. The people over there might have gotten the news, but it would take some time for word to reach here. After some time, a clamor was heard from afar while a silhouette could be seen rushing toward them. Meanwhile, someone was heard yelling, "He rejected!" A hint of astonishment flashed across Futian's eyes. The result was exactly like what the others predicted. Dongwang the Great really declined Human Realm's political marriage proposal. Although they had seen it coming, the news was rather impactful withal. Dongwang the Great only gave a short answer. The people from Human Realm were not invited into the gate of the Imperial Palace. Someone could be heard shouting. Dongwang the Great said the exact words from afar. It's inappropriate to adopt human ancestors' disciple into Dongwang Imperial Palace. Please forgive us for not inviting you in. Even though everyone had predicted the outcome, their hearts skipped a beat upon hearing the answer. However, it was not just the people here. Every cultivator in Ruin's continent felt the same after knowing Dongwang the Great's answer. Dongwang the Great presumed the other party would be adopted into his family before asking them for details. Heck, he did not even allow the Human Realm's cultivators to enter his imperial palace. A proposal for political marriage? Dongwang the Great's attitude toward this was telling the Human Realm cultivators that they were unworthy. Futian was confounded. He had never thought that Dongwang the Great would give such an insult answer and did not even try to be courteous at all. It was as if the latter was telling the other party to return to where they had crawled out from. It seemed like Dark Sovereign was right all along. The relationship between the Human Realm and the Divine Prefecture was not as good as everyone had imagined. Chapter 2778 The Path of the Emperors? The people in Divine Prefecture applauded with praise. Human ancestor wanted Di Hao to marry Dongwang Diyuan. Dongwang the Great presumed that the second mentioned was to become a live-in son-in-law. But even so, he was not worthy. Inside Dark Court, a silhouette could be seen staring into the distance. Rumors circulated around the outer realms that the great emperors had gone to Dongwang Imperial Palace. But the truth was, they did not. However, they were following the news as well. After hearing Dongwang the Great's reply, Dark Sovereign commented with a smile. Dongwang has got a spine. Human ancestors' proposal at such a sensitive period was more than just a mere appearance. He must have wished to test the waters. Nevertheless, Dongwang the Great was being uncourteous with his reply. With that, the rift between the two forces would increase significantly. He was interested to see how everything would play out. The remaining great emperors had their thoughts about this after receiving the news. Suddenly, the situation in the Six Realms had become precarious and unpredictable. How strong would the so-called alliance be? Futian and the others discussed this topic outside Yi Imperial Palace at that time. Supreme Swordlord said, "Even though we knew that Dongwang the Great would reject the proposal, we had never expected him to answer in such an insulting manner. It looks like he offended human ancestor. I had asked about your opinions earlier. All of you thought that Dongwang the Great would decline. Human ancestor is not a fool. If the outcome is one that we can predict, why would he still send his people to propose marriage? I believe the real reason behind this action is more than what meets the eye." Futian frowned and continued. "Why did human ancestor do that? For one, we cannot rule out the fact that human ancestor might have wanted to see Dongwang the Great's reaction by proposing marriage or testing the water." Supreme Swordlord went on. "Why would human ancestor test Dongwang the Great though? Well, it'd only make sense if they were not on good terms since day one. They did it despite knowing the other party hated their guts," Futian stated. "This might have something to do with the death of Emperor Yi Qing," Supreme Swordlord added. "There were many versions of stories about Emperor Yi Qing's death back then. The clash of the twin great emperors was started by Dongwang the Great, who coveted power, authority, and the throne. So, he murdered the former and even went as far as to wipe off many of his subordinates. It was a massacre. This is why he had always been a subject of condemnation. No one in Divine Prefecture dared to mention that genocide. It eventually became taboo. 400 years had passed since then. In retrospect, Dongwang might have felt the pressure that came from Outer Realm at that time. If that were the case, human ancestor might have wanted Emperor Yi Qing to die all along. Yi Futian murmured as he recounted something the Dark Sovereign had mentioned before. It was logical if this turned out to be true. Human ancestor was standing on the same side as Dark Sovereign back then. Only one of the twin great emperor could remain. Hence, the merciless mass murder happened. Nonetheless, Dongwang the Great had always carried the guilt with him all the time. Therefore, he did not kill Yi Futian but spared the latter all this while. Things made more sense if that were the case. However, there was still one thing that Yi Futian could not understand about Dongwang the Great. During the former's conversation with his teacher, Qi Xiangang, the latter mentioned that people of Dongwang the Great's caliber would always have a firm and unshakable belief. Individuals like Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign did not hide their thoughts and beliefs. It was pretty apparent. What about Dongwang the Great? To understand Dongwang the Great, he would need to know what was the belief and goal of the former. In all likelihood, Dongwang the Great's disciples might not even know about it. We don't know how this will affect the 6 realms. However, it has nothing to do with us as of now. We should go back, Yi Futian announced. He took this news very seriously. Or else he would not have come out. Although it had nothing to do with them currently, he thought that this seemingly insignificant matter would affect the entire 6 realms' future. If human ancestors' purpose was to test Dongwang the Great's attitude, what would the former do after knowing the result? It was a question that no one had to answer to at that time. With that, all of them returned to Yi Imperial Palace and put the matter at the back of their minds. After all, it did not affect them much. The most important thing to them was to focus on their cultivation. A month later, Old Ma rushed in to report that someone wished to see Yi Futian as he cultivated inside Yi Imperial Palace. Standing on the ladder outside the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace, Yi Futian looked forward and saw a silhouette who did not use the ladder but came flying in the air. Most of the cultivators in Yi Imperial Palace were upset with that figure. However, that person exuded a powerful aura where divine light circled their body. They must be a top-tier cultivator. A while later, a slender figure in green stood before Yi Futian, shooting him a sharp and condescending look. The former put an arrogant air around him and did not respect the latter. After scrutinizing that person, Yi Futian was sure that he had seen this uninvited visitor before. After Dihao was injured during that war, several powerful cultivators of the human realm came from heaven beyond heaven to God's ruins continent. Those individuals were ancient beings with some of the highest cultivation levels. This visitor was one of them. A cultivator from human realm came to Yi Imperial Palace. Was that the aftermath brought by the marriage proposal? Yi Futian remained taciturn and stared at the visitor calmly. Then he emanated an unseen aura while divine light covered his body. After all, it was insolent to behave like that on the grounds of Yi Imperial Palace. After their powerful auras clashed, Yi Futian noticed that the other party had become one entity with heaven and earth. The pressure he exuded was so intimidating that it was comparable to Dihao's. A turquoise divine light circulated around Yi Futian's body as he took a step forward. Immediately, the whole atmosphere quivered while an authority of heaven came pressing down from the sky. He piped up, "If you are here to look for trouble, I will not hesitate to take you down." After speaking, a stinging aura unleashed. The visitor immediately raised his head to stare and said, "A divine matrix." After that, he set his eyes on Yi Futian and carried on. "Not bad. However, if you wish to defeat Dongwang the Great and get your revenge, it would be empty talk without becoming a great emperor yourself." Yi Futian did not reply but glanced at him quietly. "A path of the emperors has been opened now. If you are willing, you may take this path of the emperors," the visitor remarked. "What path of the emperors?" Yi Futian asked. "What was human realm playing at? You are talented. Perhaps you have the aptitude to become a great emperor. But without an opportunity to walk on the path of the emperors, you shall never hope to reach that tier. Now there's a chance before your very eyes. Whether to grab it or not all depends on your choice." The visitor went on. "Yi Futian, will you follow me back to human realm and be a disciple of human ancestor?" "Huh!" Yi Futian's pupils shrunk when he heard that. The expressions of Yi Imperial Palace's cultivators turned grim as they glared at the man who hovered before the ladder. This man wanted Yi Futian to go to human realm and be a disciple of human ancestor? Things went just as they had expected. The repercussions following the marriage proposal had begun to take place. The human realm had already started to plot against the divine prefecture. Chapter 2779 Formless Pressure. The human realm had found him, claiming there was a path of the emperors that wanted him to join the human ancestor. Clearly, they wanted to help him against Dongwang the Great. B/B. The marriage proposal had caused the fissures between the two great emperor-level forces to expand. Perhaps, the human ancestor and Dongwang the Great were clearer about their relationship. I give my thanks to the human ancestor for his appreciation. However, I have my own path and will not cultivate under the human realm, Yi Futian replied calmly. He rejected the other directly. How could he go to the human realm? The present situation was so complicated. The best solution for him was to act by staying still. He was already trying to survive among the cracks and find a path of the emperors. If he took one wrong step, everything would fail. Your own path? After hearing Yi Futian's words, the other showed some scorn, seeming to find it laughable. He said to Yi Futian, "The heavenly path collapsed after the ancient age of gods ended. Why are there only a few great emperors? Are you really naive enough to think that you can find the path of the emperors by yourself? The heavenly path collapsed, and the path of the emperors was severed. All of those who became emperors had found special opportunities. This is also why the discovery of the gods' ruins continent represents the start of a new age. Countless possibilities have appeared, but from what we see now, the path of the emperors is still severed. Now, the human ancestor can help you find a path of the emperors. You must think carefully." The other spoke calmly with an arrogant tone, giving Yi Futian a huge chance. "If you miss this, you will not have another chance," he said. Why would the human ancestor help him find a path of the emperors? Yi Futian's heart quivered at these words. Of course, it wasn't because he was tempted. Instead, it was because why would the human ancestor be able to help him find a path of the emperors? Did this mean that the human ancestor himself controlled some special opportunities? I would still like to try. The path of the emperors is cut off, but there are still 6 emperors in the world. Why can't I? Yi Futian replied. The other took a deep look at Yi Futian with some hints of mockery. He was an ancient figure and had cultivated for countless years. Up to now, he had seen too many extraordinary figures. No one knew how many shining and talented figures had existed in the previous chaotic era, but what were their ends like? The best were cultivating in isolation like them and finding their own path. But the longer you lived, the higher your cultivation, the more clearly you understood that the path of the emperors had been cut off. As Yi Futian was very young. In this era, he belonged to an extraordinary group and was naturally very confident. After his cultivation reached the peak and some more years passed, he would understand. He looked at Yi Futian with a mocking gaze and said, "One day, you'll understand what you missed." With that, he turned and started walking, leaving this place, and quickly disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Yi Futian looked at the leaving backside and furrowed his brows slightly. Many cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace came over here. They all looked at the figure disappearing into the distance. That man is so crazily proud. Someone murmured. He must be a strong elder. He seems young, but he's definitely an ancient and supreme figure who had cultivated in the human realm until coming out in this day and age. The Supreme Swordlord said. The human ancestors sent these people out of the mountains and had tried earlier to test Dongwang, the Great's attitude with the marriage alliance. What exactly is he planning? What goal did the human ancestor have? He vaguely felt that there was a deeper meaning to what the human ancestor's actions, but they didn't know yet. Plus, since the human ancestor could send people to find me, then he might be looking for other top figures in the divine prefecture. Yi Futian said. The human realm might be trying to overthrow the divine prefecture. That is indeed possible. The Supreme Swordlord nodded. Especially if he uses the path of the emperors as bait. how many top figures would be able to resist the temptation? The Dongwang Imperial Palace doesn't control the forces of the Divine Prefecture directly. Other than the forces they dominate directly, and the manners of the 18 domains, all the forces and cultivators are free, like how I'm here today. Also, since the human ancestor is an ancient great emperor, he must know even more. He has a rich heritage, and this in itself is very tempting to many top figures. Many strong cultivators might be persuaded to leave the Divine Prefecture. If a conflict erupts between the human realm and Divine Prefecture, then won't the Dark World, Devil Realm, and other forces be there to reap the benefits? Futian asked in a low voice. Why was the human ancestor doing this? And why would Dongwang the Great act so domineering during the marriage alliance? He could say many things to reject the human realm, but he chose the most direct way. He did not hide his unhappiness at all and humiliated the one who'd come to propose. You had to look at a dog's master before hitting it. The one Dongwang the Great humiliated was the human ancestor in the back. His direct disciple Dihao had come to propose marriage? He wasn't even qualified to enter the Dongwang Imperial Palace as an in-law. Don't know how Dongwang the Great will deal with this, the Supreme Swordlord said. If Dongwang the Great and the human ancestor turn on each other, then the Dark Court, Devil Realm, and other forces will take advantage of this. It goes without saying. At that time, the Divine Prefecture might be surrounded by enemies. The Dark World and Devil Realm won't mind taking the Divine Prefecture first. Thus, I don't understand Dongwang the Great's intent. Perhaps he has his own plan. Futian nodded. The current situation was becoming harder to understand. How will the 6 realms be in the future? As for the Dongwang the Great's 500-year fate of the Emperor, would he be the one to end it in 40 years? Or would it be the human ancestors group? If this situation continued worsening, it was indeed possible. After a pause, Futian took a deep breath and said, We're getting more and more pressed for time. I vaguely feel that there will be another huge change in the world. We must hurry and cultivate the path of the emperors. How could he step into the great emperor plane sooner? He could only enter the emperor plane to truly contend with the 6 realms. Right now, he was only a chess piece. The 6 emperors did not truly respect him. Everyone nodded, showing that they agreed with Futian's words. They also had this feeling. Dark currents were flowing through the 6 realms right now, and an intense storm could occur at any time. Let's all go cultivate. Those who have gone past the second divine tribulation of the Great Path must enter the near-deity plane as soon as possible, while those who have gone through the first divine tribulation should go through the second as soon as possible, Futian said. He set down the other thoughts for now. For them right now, they could only remain unchanging to respond to the changes. Only cultivation could improve the Yi Imperial Palace's level. Yes, Palace Lord. All the strong cultivators bowed and left this place, heading to cultivate. Futian looked into the distance and took a deep breath. He felt a formless pressure, the pressure from the outer realms. With the current situation, any carelessness could be fatal. As a chess piece, he may be abandoned at any time too. Futian was not arrogant enough to think that his relationship with the Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign was very stable. Chapter 2780 The Killing Arrives. It was year 10,150 of the Divine Prefecture calendar. The God's Ruins continent had gone through the accumulation of time. After cycling through chaos to peace countless times, many extraordinary figures had appeared. The population of the place was great too. Cultivators from all the worlds had come here, taking root and growing stronger. More and more forces were established here. In terms of the overall level, this God's Ruins continent was stronger than any realm of the 7 realms. Of course, this continent itself got its power from the forces of the original realm that had moved from the 7 realms. There was also an interesting phenomenon in recent years. The cultivators from the original realm mostly gathered in the territory covered by the Yi Imperial Palace. They were stationed there, as if seeing the Yi Imperial Palace as the center, agreeing by default that the Yi Imperial Palace represented the forces of the original realm. B/B. Of course, most of them had come to the ruins continent to cultivate through the space passage created by the Yi Imperial Palace. So they naturally felt closer to the Yi Imperial Palace and viewed it as a place they revered. In addition, the disciples that had originally studied at the Heavenly Mandate Academy had gradually matured and strengthened. They held great authority among the original realm cultivators in the outside world. It was even more so for the people who had come from the Ziwei Imperial Palace. As for the forces outside of the original realm, they were developing non-stop too. They crossed through their cultivation realm and the ruins world, improving their abilities while preserving relative peace. No large-scale conflicts had erupted in the past few years. However, there was still something that caused a commotion. It was the dark undercurrent of the Seven Realms. This event was still related to the marriage alliance from a few years back. After the human realm had been rejected and humiliated, their relationship with the divine prefecture worsened subtly too. Not too long after that event, the human realm invited the top figures of the Seven Realms to a sparring session in the human realm. There had been many guesses about this sparring session. The general public was not familiar with it, but according to rumors, the human realm wanted to win over the strongest figures of all the worlds. This naturally included the top figures of the divine prefecture. Apparently, many strong cultivators had gone, including famous people from the divine prefecture, who had gone secretly. As for what exactly happened there, no one knew. The Yi Imperial Palace did not participate. A strong cultivator of the human realm had gone personally to invite Yi Futian to cultivate in the human realm and learn from the human ancestor, but Yi Futian had rejected him. This meant that he had missed the chance to get close with the human realm. At this time, a mysterious yet strong aura covered the land within the Yi Imperial Palace. This vast Yi Imperial Palace was like a true emperor-level palace. It was extremely magnificent, and the formless weight that filled the sky above it was like the might of an emperor. Many top figures had gathered within the Yi Imperial Palace. Many strong figures had gone through the divine tribulation of the Great Path, especially since many people had had breakthroughs these past few years. After the previous storm, Yi Futian had ordered the strong cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivate in peace and improve themselves. The strong figures of the Yi Imperial Palace all followed Yi Futian's orders and worked hard on cultivating, trying their best to reach another level before the drastic changes occurred. This way, they could react to the changes. With such a cultivation environment, as well as pills, various divine techniques, and other cultivation resources, their abilities had improved quickly. Yi Futian sat in the cultivation court at the peak of the Yi Imperial Palace. Divine light circled him. With his body as the core, the green divine light enveloped the boundless world. It reached the sky along the divine wall, passed through the matrix, and extended and enveloped the vast Yi Imperial Palace. Right now, the entire Yi Imperial Palace was under the envelopment of his divine consciousness. Naturally, it was also covered by the domain of his will of the Great Way. It was like his small world. Under his divine consciousness, he could see all the cultivators. He could easily see the cultivation statuses of Third Brother Gu Donglu, the Supreme Sword Lord, Fang Xiyuan, and Xia Qingyuan. They all knew this and did not care that Yi Futian was watching them. When they ran into problems with cultivating, they would communicate directly with Yi Futian like this. Fang Xiyuan and the others especially would often speak up directly to ask about cultivation. Yi. Just then, a figure stood up in a cultivation spot of the Yi Imperial Palace and looked up at the sky. His figure was burlesque and filled with aggressive force. He actually called directly to the sky. There was a strong wave of qi in the atrium. It gathered into an illusory face. It was Yi Futian's face. "What is wrong?" A voice came out of that illusion. It was Yi Futian's figure, but his true self was still cultivating in isolation. This illusory figure was only formed by his consciousness. "I just comprehended a shred of power of the Dragon God from the Dragon God's corpse. After combining it into my will of the Fighting God, I can have a breakthrough. Do you want to try?" Dou Zhao said a bit excitedly. Yi Futian had once exchanged a Dragon God's corpse with Xia Qingyuan. It was mainly to help the demon clan cultivate, especially the dragon clan. Dou Zhao had comprehended a shred of the power of the dragon god too. Okay, the illusion in the sky answered. Dou Zhao's figure instantly shot into the sky, his body transforming into a giant. Like a god of war, a frightening war rune with divine light appeared between his brows. Countless symbols of the word, war, floated in the sky, and an immense will of war burst forth. In an instant, the vast land was filled with an extremely chaotic aura. The combat power was shocking. In the Yi Imperial Palace, many people in the distance felt this strong will that shot into the clouds, and all looked over. They saw the aura of war shoot up, and a war godlike figure rose up, zooming murderously into the sky. It was Dou Zhao. He had gone through the first divine tribulation of the Great Path countless years ago. Such a strong aura. The abilities of Dou Zhao are getting scarier nowadays. I must cultivate hard too. Someone whispered, their heart quivering nowadays. The abilities of the cultivators in the Yi Imperial Palace were getting more and more frightening. If they didn't work hard in cultivating, they would get left in the dust. Open! Dou Zhao roared. He transformed into the war god, and his will of war continued to be pushed to the max. He rushed into the sky, and battle intent filled the air instantly. The war god was about to shatter the void. But just then, the illusory figure in the sky stamped his foot, making the world thunder. It stepped directly onto that war god's body, and the aggressive war god that had shot into the sky dropped down even faster. It had been stepped on and forced down directly. Boom! There was a huge boom, and some buildings collapsed. Many people's hearts clenched fiercely. They all mourned for the war god that had disappeared. So sad. He has gotten cocky, someone murmured before turning to start cultivating again. He has indeed gotten cocky, someone else said. Dou Zhao could have dueled with anyone, so why did he have to go for Yi Futian? Wasn't he asking for it? Did he not know his level after going through the divine tribulation of the Great Path? Little Condor, you can duel with Dou Zhao when you have time, Yi Futian's voice said in the void. Okay. Condor-sama had flown over from somewhere. He transformed into a giant bird and dove straight towards Dou Zhao. Soon there were some huge booms and pained cries. One could vaguely make out pleas of, "I'm sorry." Yi Futian saw all of this. He opened his eyes now and looked up into the sky. His plane was getting stronger and stronger, but he still had not had any tangible changes. The third divine tribulation still had not come. But in reality, his cultivation now was incomparable to how it had been. He could feel that he was much stronger. Would he reach the near-God plane? Yi Futian was even thinking about what kind of plane the near-God plane was. It was originally a plane of void. It was known as the path they must cross to become a great emperor, and the ultimate door they would pass into. However, his cultivation was different from the others. He was still stuck at the pinnacle of the Renhuang plane at present. Even though he had gone through 2 divine tribulations, he still had not become a tribulation cultivator like the others. His tribulations were different from the others. This was why Yi Futian was thinking and even doubting a bit. Dou Zhao is begging for mercy. Won't you let little Condor release him? Hua Jieyu said with a smile as she walked over. That guy deserves a beating. Little Condor can spark his bloodthirstiness and give him some motivation, Yi Futian said with a laugh. He trolled Dou Zhao purposely for disturbing his cultivation. He indeed deserves it. You were frustrated about cultivation, and he disturbed you, Hua Jieyu said. However, you should not be too impatient. Cultivation has no instant success. Instead, it takes time. Once you comprehend enough of a plane, you will naturally break down the walls. It is just that your cultivation is special, so your walls are higher than the others, but your abilities are stronger too. BN/B. Yes. Yi Futian nodded. Overthinking without comprehension is indeed meaningless. Do what you can to the best of your abilities, and what should come will come naturally at the right time. Hua Jieyu continued. I understand. Yi Futian nodded and continued to cultivate. He entered a state of complete focus. The moment he started cultivating, he put away all other thoughts and entered his world to see his true self clearly. Time passed unknowingly. Futian was immersed in his own cultivation. That day, many people in the territory controlled by the Imperial Palace looked up to the sky. There were strands of shocking aura in the void. They all looked up to the sky and then saw a group of strong cultivators descend from the sky. This group was clearly from different parties, but all the parties' auras were frightening to the max. Who are they? The hearts of the cultivators were all racing. These auras were exceedingly frightening, especially the few at the front. Like gods, their gazes swept across the ground with disdain, as if they were looking at ants. Those gazes made many cultivators feel extremely uncomfortable. In fact, some even sensed danger. Before they could react, a destructive bolt of golden lightning appeared in the sky. It traveled across the high sky, containing the incredible intent of destruction. Then one of the strong figures pointed downward with a finger. The destructive golden lightning instantly swept down murderously like it meant to destroy the world. The many people were shocked immediately, and they hurried towards the distance, wanting to escape. But that destructive golden lightning seemed to contain divine power. Every cultivator it hit was instantly turned to dust. They could not resist at all and died tragically under the golden lightning. The ground split apart, and terrifying cracks opened up. The golden lightning continued spreading into the distance, as if the ground had broken apart. The cultivators in this vast space started fleeing madly. The destructive aura in the sky above their heads was still there, and they all felt a dangerous intent. These people had come with the intent of murder. "Run! Notify Palace Lord Yi!" someone yelled. They seemed to want to ask Palace Lord Yi for help, but as soon as he finished speaking, a golden bolt of lightning struck his body. His entire body disappeared under the golden lightning, and his soul was scattered. He did not even have a corpse left. The group of cultivators looked at the Imperial Palace in the distance, and their eyes were filled with scorn, along with a murderous aura. Notify the Imperial Palace? There was no hurry. They had come to destroy the Imperial Palace. Everything would end today. The Imperial Palace and Ziwei Segmentum would become history. This was not Futian's era. He never had an era. He was only a talented junior who had fallen before he could fully rise up. So what if he was extremely talented? What could he change? They came today, representing the god of death. Boom! Countless huge palm prints fell from the sky. Nothing survived in their paths. Everyone was killed instantly under the attacks of the palm prints, and huge dents from the palms appeared on the ground. Everyone was fleeing wildly, but the moment that disaster came, they could only pray. The destructive blows kept raining down as if the Reaper had come to this land. Who is wreaking havoc here? Beautiful divine light of the great path flowed in from the distance. It was the cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace hurrying over. They were the ones who had joined the Ziwei Imperial Palace before, and now, many of them had reached the pinnacle of the Renhuang Plain. Their hearts trembled after feeling the destructive intent too. These people were extremely frightening, but they must come to stop them. Of course, they had also notified the Yi Imperial Palace. As soon as they finished speaking, a destructive divine formation appeared in the sky. Then disparaging sword intent rained down, creating endless stabbing sounds. They did not even have the time to yell out in pain before dying tragically under the attacks. They could not even think of resistance. Right now, this place was like hell on earth. No one knew how many cultivators had died in an instant. This cruel and cold-blooded bloodshed had not happened on the Ruins continent in many years, but it had happened here today. BN/B. Many people felt despair. They could not even flee, but the strong cultivators did not seem to care about their lives. The murder was only done offhandedly. They traveled directly across the sky. Everywhere they passed, countless people were turned to dust. Their goal was the Yi Imperial Palace. These top figures had come for the Yi Imperial Palace to destroy the Yi Imperial Palace. Chapter 2781 One step too slow. Everyone, retreat! A voice filled the atrium. No one could resist, so everyone began to do so. Clearly, the strong cultivators had realized that these people had come for blood, and they could not be stopped at all. This group of strong cultivators was frighteningly powerful. Anyone who wanted to stop them would be like trying to stop a mountain with a stick. They could not even take one hit, so they could only retreat. It would be enough if they could live on. At the same time as that voice, a divine sword appeared in the distance. It carried the supreme sword will and transformed into various boundless and huge swords, coming down at the strong cultivators who had come to kill. There were strings of thunderous noises. The huge swords contained supreme might. The supreme sword lord's figure appeared outside the imperial palace, coming out with a group of strong cultivators. They all had very uncomfortable expressions. They stared at the incoming strong cultivators in the distance, advancing with destruction. They saw countless beams of golden divine light sweeping through the void. They transformed into a golden divine sword. The sword did not contain any sword intent. It was only indestructible divine power, but it had transformed into a sword to kill and then formed attacks. It was not a swordsman. But in that instant, all the divine swords were swept away and destroyed. The golden divine sword disintegrated the sword of the Supreme Sword Lord, making the Supreme Sword Lord's expression turn ugly. He stared at the group of advancing strong cultivators. They had become too strong. Emperor's might radiated subtly from their bodies, and divine power flowed around them. They were unstoppable as they tried to destroy the imperial palace. The number of strong cultivators who had come out after the Supreme Sword Lord also had very uncomfortable expressions. They all saw that the Supreme Sword Lord could not stop them either. If this group attacked, they would probably not prevent them. Retreat. Go in. The Supreme Sword Lord saw the cold stares shoot over across the sky and instantly made the decision. He ordered the retreat, making everyone return to the imperial palace. Being outside was suicide. They were not the group's match and would only be massacred. This was meaningless death. The strong cultivators who had come out all followed the order to retreat and returned to the imperial palace. Seeing them disappear, the cultivators in the distance did not mind either. Their eyes held some mockery as if staring at their prey. They had already reached this place, and those people still wanted to escape. They must all die. None of the strong cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace should think of surviving. They would all be massacred, and the Ziwei Imperial Palace would be wiped out. The group of strong cultivators continued forward. In the sweep of an arm, who knew how many people lost their lives? They killed mindlessly, and everywhere they passed was turned to dust. It was as if people's lives were just like weeds to them, and the cultivators were like ants. This also made everyone feel despair. When faced with absolute power, they were indeed like ants. They did not even have the qualifications to resist. They could only watch as the Reaper descended, and then they would disappear from the world. Plus, the Supreme Sword Lord had come out, and then retreated. Even they could not stop these people's bloodshed. The core figures of the Ziwei Segmentum were gathered within the Yi Imperial Palace. Right now, the entire Yi Imperial Palace was shaken. The Supreme Sword Lord's roar had woken all the cultivators with shock. Then they learned what had happened in the outside world. Strong enemies had come to invade the Yi Imperial Palace. Various figures shot into the sky. Strong auras of the Great Path radiated out, and their eyes were frigid. People had actually come to kill. No one had broken in since the Yi Imperial Palace had been constructed. This was the first time, but just this once put them against a huge catastrophe. Yi Futian was cultivating in isolation, but such a great matter naturally shocked him awake at once. A frightening will of the Great Path spread out in the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. An illusory figure appeared in the sky. The Vajra region, Haotian clan, Jiang clan, and other ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture have allied and attacked us, the Supreme Sword Lord announced. His voice spread across the entire Yi Imperial Palace, resonating through this land. They have committed massacres in the outer realms and are almost here. In cultivation, Yi Futian opened his eyes. His figure flashed, and he appeared in the sky, combining with the illusory figure. His expression did not look good. The ancient god clans had always been a danger. After the great emperor intent of the ancient god clans was awoken, they became extremely threatening. They had always been trying to cultivate faster than the others and get rid of the other. Before this, the ancient god clans had kept a low cover and never attacked him. But today, they had attacked together and were committing so much bloodshed. Futian understood that the other side seemed to be very confident. Then, it was very likely they had taken a critical step and had experienced a transformation. That was why they dared to attack the Yi Imperial Palace so crazily. What step had they cultivated to? Boom! Following a considerable boom, the group of strong cultivators burst into the Yi Imperial Palace. It was indeed the alliance of the few ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture in the past. This allied force had wanted to destroy them more than once. They had attacked the Ziwei Segmentum countless times before, but they all paid heavy prices. Tianyan City had especially been destroyed, the will of the Tianyan the Great had been wiped out, and the divine weapons had been taken. But the heritages of the other ancient god clans were still there, and they always hid their strongest trump card. They had fought before, but they had never been confident in destroying the other, and had always been waiting. Now they seemed one step faster than him and had come here to attack directly. A storm of the great path flowed in the atrium. Futian's illusory figure seemed to appear in the sky. He stared at the incoming strong cultivators. The Lord of the Vajra realm and countless other top cultivators also looked up into the sky. Their eyes were like divine eyes, containing extremely sharp intents, along with a hint of disdainful air. They were like high and mighty gods who did not care for anything here and were extremely scornful. Seeing those eyes, Futian knew that these ancient figures probably had done what Tianyan the Great had done back then. They had controlled the physical bodies that they borrowed, step by step. Back then, Tianyan the Great had possessed Wang Zhao's body and finally became one with him. Wang Zhao had disappeared, and Tianyan the Great had been reborn. Now, the few rulers of the ancient god clans had probably become the shells of the great emperors. Futian! The Vajra realm's lord yelled. His eyes had turned golden and were extremely sharp. Divine power seemed to flow in his eyes, and he stared scornfully at Futian's body. It seems that in the end you are still a bit slow, he said. After today, this star figure who had risen from the original realm will be eradicated from the world. Slow? Futian could feel that gust of divine power, and could feel the strong confidence in the other's eyes. The great emperor had been revived and attacked the Yi Imperial Palace to take his life. Several other great emperors had come at the same time too. They thought highly of him. You all were great emperors before too. How can you massacre the innocent? Futian asked coldly. They were great emperors but massacring wildly. How could people of the outer realms resist the killing of a former great emperor? They are nothing but ants. In that era, not even one of 10 cultivators could survive. This is nothing, they said coldly. They did not care for the people's lives at all. To them, the masses were like ants. Chapter 2782 Crisis. So, you'll even possess and devour your own juniors? Futian's eyes were cold. These great emperors disrespected the masses. It is their honor to be able to combine with our consciousnesses, the Vajra realm lord said coldly. Supported by the divine power, his entire aura had changed drastically and was completely different from the original Vajra realm lord. It was like Wang Zhao after being possessed by Tianyan the Great. At this time, another figure appeared in the sky. It was Qiqiao. She was also from an ancient god clan and had some similarities. She looked at the group in the lower sky and said coldly, Since you all have stepped onto this path, as the Buddha of Destiny said, the age of gods will appear. You all will have the chance to recover your emperor position. You're no longer your original self, so why remain obsessed with the past rivalries? They all gazed at Qiqiao. They knew that Qiqiao was a bit special too, like them. After all, they had all inherited the forces of the ancient god clans. If he is only an ordinary person, then he is an ant in my eyes. I would not lower myself to make this trip. You also said that I will recover my emperor position in the future. How can I leave such a threat here? They were a bit worried because of how extraordinary Yi Futian was. They worried that Yi Futian would enter the great emperor plane one day, becoming their threat. After all, it was incredibly difficult for them to come back to life. They had gone through a long passage of time for the change in the world to finally come and give them a chance to return to the world and the past. They were not like Tianyan the Great. It seems that the fallen gods of the past have fear in their hearts, Yi Futian said coldly, with hints of mockery. These figures who had once been great emperors feared him, and thus came to kill him. Say whatever you want. Today, all of this will cease to exist, the other party replied indifferently. They were dismissive of Yi Futian's words. It should not have been so fast. Furrowing her brows, Shi Qiao said. How did you all do it? She was like these people. Naturally, she knew some things. What methods did you all take to reach this step? Shi Qiao continued to ask. Hearing Shi Qiao's words, Yi Futian also had a surprised expression. Then he seemed to think of something and asked, You all went to the human realm? Naturally, he knew about that matter too. Of course, he also remembered how the human ancestor had sent someone to invite him before. At that time, they had guessed that the human realm might convince some top cultivators of the divine prefecture to join them. Then, these big ancient god clans may very well be among them. Plus, these ancient god clans all had former great emperors. The human ancestor's promise would be the most tempting and attractive to them. A sharp flash of murderous intent appeared in the eyes of the Vajra realm lord. While divine power surged, he raised his hands and pointed straight up at Shi Qiao in the sky. The finger penetrated the skies, and a frightening beam of golden light appeared in the void, going towards Shi Qiao instantly. Boom! A blur flashed by, and Yi Futian's figure appeared, taking Shi Qiao away from her original spot. The frightening divine power stabbed into the void, and it was like a hole opened up in the heavens penetrated by the divine power. Step back, Yi Futian said. Shi Qiao's situation was the same as the other side before, but she was no longer their match. These people had already been possessed and completed a critical transformation. Yi Futian was unclear about how strong they were now, but since they dared to charge into the Yi Imperial Palace, they were very confident they could kill them. Everyone step back, Yi Futian said. Instantly many people retreated. They all understood that they would not do much in this battle. The vast Yi Imperial Palace became extremely depressed. Even though this place was huge, it did not mean anything for strong cultivators of this level. Their attacks could cover it directly. Yi Futian had a thought, and instantly, frightening will of the emperor flooded out. Green divine light shone in the heavens. At the same time, countless runes appeared in the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. It was like a curtain of light. These runes were all runes of the sword way, containing immense swordsmanship chi. At the same time, an emperor-level divine sword hovered at the peak of the Yi Imperial Palace, pulsing with immense sword will. Yi Futian's figure seemed to have become one with the world here. His will became the will of the land. The runes in the heavens transformed into the sharpest divine swords and quickly unified into a huge divine sword. Then Yi Futian pointed down the sky. The divine sword instantly stabbed down murderously, carrying the immense will of the sword. Poof! The sharp sound ripped apart the void. The frightening divine sword ignored the distance in the space and pierced down murderously, stabbing toward the Vajra realm lord. This sword attack was extremely shocking. It broke apart the land like a sword that would destroy the world. It was aggressive and domineering, tearing apart the space. Countless beams of sword will buried that portion of the sky. Emperor weapon, divine formation! The strong cultivators of the ancient god clans looked up into the sky. The great emperors were all stunned while looking at the incoming sword. As expected, it was correct for them to have not come in the past. If they had attacked here before, they probably would not be able to fend off such a divine sword attack. A storm of divine power suddenly swept up around the Vajra realm lord. In an instant, unsurmountable divine might enveloped the land and sky. With his body as the core, the Vajra realm's divine power converged into a frightening curtain of light. There seemed to be a god behind him. The terrifying storm of divine power gathered, and the ancient god of the Vajra realm pointed forward. It was like a true heavenly god's point. Countless beams of finger light shone forth, and they were all created from the Vajra realm's divine power. And the pointed finger went straight towards the frighteningly intense incoming divine sword. The Vajra realm lord did not avoid it, and faced the sword attack squarely. For his current state, any being below the great emperor plane were like ants. He did not care. Even if a true great emperor released emperor weapons and divine formations, why would he care? The two attacks clashed together, and a muffled sound was emitted from the entire Yi Imperial Palace. It was as if the space was being ripped apart as the destructive windstorm swept through the place. The Vajra realm's divine power was an indestructible and sharp divine power. Even when it crashed against the huge sword, it still stabbed through directly. The huge divine sword broke bit by bit from the center and crumbled. After the divine sword was destroyed, the divine power of the Vajra realm was still there. When the destructive windstorm scattered, Yi Futian's eyes grew extremely grave. He stared down from the sky. He could mostly get a feel of the other party's abilities from this attack. It was only one person, but he was already this strong, while there were countless figures of this level on the other side. How could he counter them? The Vajra realm lord's eyes held some shades of mockery. They had killed all the way here, sweeping all of the beings, but he actually was not as impatient now. He kind of felt bad about killing a cultivator like Yi Futian, who was qualified to become a great emperor. Chapter 2783 Die with Honor? Yi Futian, I can give you a way to survive. Will you choose it? The Vajra realm lord asked. His voice held penetrative power, and the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace felt their eardrums hurt. The former great emperor had combined with the Vajra realm lord, becoming one. He had recovered his divine power, and though he still had not recovered to his prime, he was already under the emperor plane. Even his voice contained divine power. The people of the Yi Imperial Palace could feel it. They felt hopeless and looked up at Yi Futian in the sky. Perhaps they would face unprecedented danger today. Would they be able to reverse the tides this time? A way to survive? Yi Futian looked at the other. He understood clearly that there was only one path to resolving this under the circumstances. Everyone under the great emperor plane were ants. He must kowtow under the other's foot, accept the other's control and give up everything. This is what the other wanted. In reality, they had lost the ability to relieve the situation after the storm that year. One party had to be destroyed. However, he seemed to indeed be one step slower. The other had reached the next level one step sooner, even though this might have been because of the human ancestor. But the process was not necessary. It was the result that was important. While the Vajra realm lord spoke, a boundless divine formation appeared in the sky. The divine formation contained boundless and infinite sword will as if it was the power of divine punishment. Yi Futian took a look. It was another reincarnated great emperor of the ancient god clan preparing to attack. He had a thought, and a horrifying spatial storm appeared in the sky. The rules in this place surged, and countless swallowing spaces appeared in the vast space. In addition, a huge swallowing wheel appeared. It was like a black hole that could swallow up everything in the world. Very strong rules of space flooded outside of this black hole storm. In the sky, it was as if the will of the great emperor was awakening. This land originally had a will of the great emperor. This had once been where the Maharaja of the 8 legions had been located. Yi Futian's eyes changed. His body melted into that space, disappearing into the black hole. This windstorm flooded down the sky. The black hole swallowed everything in the world, including the force of the great path, causing many of the sword will to disappear after being swept into the black hole. Interesting. The Vajra realm lord looked up into the sky. His golden eyes held divine power and were extremely sharp. The will of the Maharaja from the ancient 8 legions. Unfortunately, this does not exist. As soon as he finished speaking, a frightening will shot into the heavens, causing that horrifying swallowing storm in the sky to ripple. The other reincarnated great emperors also released their wills. The entire Yi Imperial Palace was enveloped by the wills of these great emperors, making people feel truly suffocating pressure. Every will was of the great emperor level. Even though these great emperors had not returned to their peak, they had already awoken again and returned. It was the true will of the great emperor. Just as the other had said, if King Maharaja had come back to life, he would naturally be able to force back their will. But Maharaja did not exist anymore while they had indeed returned. Boom! The silhouette of the Vajra realm's ancient god raised a hand and pointed at the sky. In an instant, the divine power of the Vajra realm transformed into various sharp blades that penetrated the void. The blades did not fly out of his hand. Instead, it crossed through the void and stabbed into the black hole storm that could swallow everything. The various sharp blades came from an ancient god's hand and could stab through the spatial storm directly. The black hole storm swallowed it up, but the other end was still in the hand of the ancient god. Divine power burst forth, flooding wildly into the black hole storm, wanting to rip the black hole storm apart. The black hole storms rolled and thundered as if they were about to collapse. At the same time, the force of divine punishment transformed by the countless divine swords also stabbed into the black hole storm. These ancient gods wanted to make the black hole storm collapse forcefully. Boom, boom, boom. Many thunderous sounds shook the sky and land. The windstorms that had appeared above the Yi Imperial Palace were collapsing simultaneously, getting ruined and destroyed. Billions of divine swords flew out at once, racing towards Yi Futian. Suddenly, a very strong beam of the sword will appeared in the sky. 4 figures appeared at the same time. The 4 great swordsmen were the Supreme Sword Lord, Yi Wuchen, Yaya, and Swords Master of Lihin. Of course, the Supreme Sword Lord was the leader, while Yi Wuchen and the other swordsmen were support. They released the Emperor-level will that they'd comprehended that year and activated the Emperor-level divine weapon. With the Supreme Sword Lord as the main sword formation leader, a massive divine sword formation appeared above the windstorm. The 2 forces of sword will crashed wildly against each other, collapsing in the void and appending the world. Humph! There was a cold huff, and then a Futian great palm seal appeared in the sky. It passed through the broken sword will directly, and slammed into the Supreme Sword Lord and the others in the sky. B. They pushed the huge sword to crash against it, but the moment that the Futian divine power was released, it already crushed everything. The great palm seal transformed into the sky, representing the will of Futian. It was incomparable. Boom! With a massive crash, the Emperor-level divine sword fell down and finally caused the Futian great palm seal to shake. However, the Emperor-level divine sword was still sent flying back. The Supreme Sword Lord and other strong cultivators were sent flying too. They grunted, and fresh blood trickled out of their mouths. They had not been hit directly. It was the divine power contained in the will of Futian that had hurt them. Insects are trying to shake a tree, the leader of the Futian clan said. He had once been Futian the Great. One could imagine how incredibly strong he had been before to name himself after Futian, the vast heavens. He represented the will of Futian. The divine power that he cultivated was also the divine power of Futian. Now, even though he had not returned fully, he could already release his will and divine power at the same time. How could these people counter him with only one Emperor-level weapon? He could sweep away everything by himself and kill into the Yi Imperial Palace. And yet, they had all come together. Yi Futian glanced at the Supreme Sword Lord and the others. He felt some despair. Naturally, he also thought that these people were already returning. Even though they had not become emperors directly after returning, they were already near great emperors. These near great emperors were not the same as other near-deity cultivators. Even if the other near-deity cultivators had very detailed and strong cultivations, they had not touched the ultimate power yet. But these people had felt it before. They had once been true great emperors. Yi Futian, it is still your honor to die here today, the Futian clan leader announced, his voice reverberating the sky. It was still Yi Futian's honor to die because he would die in their hands. Countless great emperors had allied today to kill Yi Futian. As the descendant of a great emperor and heir of many great emperors, you aren't willing to surrender. Then, today I will bestow upon you an honored death. You may rest in peace, the Vajra realm leader said. His voice was extremely cold and arrogant. Bestowing death upon Yi Futian was his honor. It was only because they were high and mighty great emperors. Merely dying in their hands was an honor, let alone all of them descending together to kill Yi Futian. No one else in the divine prefecture would have this honor. Killing him was his own honor. What kind of arrogance was this? What kind of mockery was this? But these people had once been great emperors. Right now, all the strong cultivators of the Yi imperial palace only felt suffocating pressure. The repressive aura shrouded everyone. It was not only Yi Futian today. The group of great emperors saw everyone's lives as nothing. Everything under the great emperor plane were mere ants. If Yi Futian lost, then everyone would die here today. The other party would not let anyone go. The Yi imperial palace was a whole. At this moment, Yi Futian's body entered the upper sky. His chi surged wildly within him, flowing towards the outer world. Emerald green divine light from his life palace combined with the will of the world. His own will incorporated into the world too. His cultivation had improved his abilities significantly these past few years. He was incomparable to the past and could not be spoken of in the same way, but even so, he was not facing the controllers of ancient god clans anymore. Instead, they were returned great emperors. Plus, it was not only one. Under these circumstances, he would only have a sliver of chance by borrowing the will of ancient great emperors and fully combine with the will of Maharaja that was contained in the relics. As if sensing something, the group of strong cultivators looked up into the sky. There was scorn in their eyes. Yi Futian still had not given up and wanted to turn the tides. He was dreaming. The people are always so delusional. They're already hopeless, but they still hold on to the fantasy. It's just a struggle before death. What meaning is there for an ant's struggle? The Futian clan leader said loudly. His voice was indifferent and held a lofty feeling. He did not respect Yi Futian at all. He was no longer the controller of the Futian clan. The strong cultivators of the Yi imperial palace did not think that the other party was being cocky when they heard this voice. Instead, the voice seemed solemn and grave, as if stating a fact. That was the voice of a great emperor, and it was accompanied by a divine might. The masses were ants, while they were the rulers of the world. What meaning was there for an ant's struggle? Perhaps it was because Yi Futian was the first person they wanted to kill after returning, or maybe he was the first opponent. So they were a bit more talkative. Even though they did not truly see Yi Futian as an opponent, they still gave Yi Futian some respect. In their eyes, they had come personally to kill Yi Futian, and several had come together. This was already respect. It was Yi Futian's honor. He could die with honor. Die, a calm voice said. It was a distant tone, as if announcing the result that had already been determined. In the sky, the Futian might shrouded the land. A face appeared above his body. It seemed to represent Futian. This face then transformed into a huge figure, like a heavenly deity. It raised a hand and slammed down at the lower sky. Countless Futian great palm seals abruptly shot down. The ground shattered, and everything was about to be destroyed. The palm seals covered the entire Yi imperial palace. Everything was about to be destroyed. Chapter 2784 Divine War. The falling Futian great palm seals contained Futian divine power and were abominable. As soon as the palm seals appeared, the cultivators in the entire Yi imperial palace felt a divine might. It was the weight of Futian. It felt suffocating, and their blood thundered as if their bodies were about to implode. They could not imagine what would happen if they were hit by the divine power within the great palm seal. They could not withstand the divine print of Futian at all. Just then, a brilliant beam of divine light lit up throughout the entire Yi imperial palace. The golden divine light swept by, transforming into an incredible sheet of light. At the same time, divine music sounded, filling the sky. A group of figures appeared in the sky above the Yi imperial palace. This group of strong cultivators had directly formed the divine formation, using their flesh bodies to create the formation. They stood in different directions of the Yi imperial palace, and the silhouette of the war god appeared behind their bodies, looming over the land. The cultivators of the lost clan. The people of the Yi Imperial Palace all looked up to the sky. The newcomers were the strong cultivators of the Lost Clan. Headed by the elders of the Lost Clan, the 360 Lost Clan cultivators formed this super war formation. Most of the people were afraid, while the truly strong cultivators were those at the elder level. This time, all the elders had come out. The strong cultivators of the Lost Clan who had not gotten involved with matters seemed incredibly ancient, but they had stepped out this time too. This was not only the matter of the Ziwei Imperial Palace, but it also pertained to the Lost Clan. The current Yi Imperial Palace included the Ziwei Imperial Palace, West Imperial Palace, and the Lost Clan. If one flourished, all flourished. If one was ruined, all were ruined. Divine light shimmered subtly in that strong war formation. It was supposed by ancient Emperor-level weapons, and divine power surged. It covered the sky and sun, blocking the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. The Futian divine palm seals rained down, emitting muffled thunders as if the world was about to break apart. The curtain of divine light cracked immediately and broke apart. But then the ancient figures who'd appeared pushed up the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The thunderous noises continued, streaming out endlessly. The leader of the Futian clan stood high in the sky and gazed at the cultivators of the Lost Clan with his divine eyes. It was as expected of an ancient clan. They formed a battle formation with their flesh and did not fear death. However, all effort was futile. The Lost Clan was only a clan abandoned by the deities. How could they resist a true deity? The godlike bodies broke apart one by one, and the ancient god's silhouette was crumbling. All cultivators of the Lost Clan withstood the immense pressure of divine power. Under the reverberations of the divine power, many strong Lost Clan cultivators under the formation spat out blood, and their bodies fell down the sky. They could not take it any more and died on the spot. The elders of the Lost Clan were withstanding most of the pressure, but their cultivations were stronger. The Lost Clan cultivators who had not gone through the tribulations yet were still too weak. They could not take it, and deaths kept occurring. Plus, as the Futian divine power continued attacking, some of the Lost Clan elders also started spitting out blood. It was like cracks had appeared in their bodies, and they could die on the spot at any time. Seeing this situation, the Supreme Sword Lord and his group used the divine sword to attack. Blind Tai, Fang Xiyuan, and the others all contributed their weapons, attacking up the sky. Shi Qiao, Gu Donglu, and all other strong cultivators who could fight, such as those who had inherited emperor weapons, all started attacking. Even Xia Qingyuan went up to the sky. Her cultivation was only at the peak of the Renhuang Plain, but she had inherited a great emperor's heritage. She activated the Lotus of Life, causing a sacred lotus to appear in the sky. It kept enlarging, and the flower petals bloomed. She went towards the group in the sky, and the intent of life flowed out continuously. Even so, people still kept getting injured and were hurled down from the sky. It was incredibly tragic. At that time, there was a strange commotion in the sky. Yi Futian's entire body had disappeared, becoming one with the will of the world. A huge godly silhouette of Maharaga appeared. There were many pythons hanging from its body. The frightening but ancient heavenly deity formed by Maharaga opened his bloody maw and started devouring the Vajra Realm Lord and other cultivators. His big mouth swallowed everything, covering the entire sky. With one move, it swallowed up that sky, causing all those figures to disappear. Humph! A cold huff came from within the silhouette of Maharaga. Then intense divine light burst out of it. The light was brilliant, and divine power was suffused in it. There was a horrifying boom that kept shaking the silhouette of Maharaga. Bang! After an intense explosive sound, the godly silhouette collapsed. The group of cultivators appeared in the sky. Those former great emperors were there. So what if they had gotten devoured? Divine power wrapped around them all and could not hurt them. But the moment they reappeared, another huge face appeared in the sky. It was still Maharaga's face. He let out a huge roar. The angry roar of an ancient god caused the souls of many cultivators to tremble. Some of the enemy cultivators of the ancient god clans collapsed directly and died on the spot, getting killed by the reverberations. This roar contained the will of the great emperor. This scene made the great emperors a bit shocked. Under these circumstances, their people could still get killed directly by Futian. This intensified the murderous intent in their eyes. It was not great for this kind of thing to happen before them, even though they did not care about those people's lives, despite them being their descendants. What they cared about was that even ants could fight back. This upset them greatly. At the same time, shocking divine power descended. A huge godly silhouette of Maharaja wielding a divine ruler hacked down directly. This ruler covered the sky and sun, and the atrium was instantly filled with ruler silhouettes. Each ruler contained immense power. The sky became very heavy, as if the world would collapse if this ruler fell down. Divine power! The great emperors went up higher. Divine power flooded into a curtain of light, but when the divine ruler arrived, the curtain of light was shattered. The ruler silhouettes that filled the sky continued raining down at them, actually making them feel a bit of pressure. The ants in their eyes made them feel pressure. This scene made them furrow their brows, and they all raised their hands to attack. The Vajra realm divine print and Futian great palm seal were sent out. When the sky full of ruler silhouettes rained down, the Vajra realm divine print and Futian great palm seal were shattered too. Attacks from Maharaja in the sky did not stop. Supported by divine power, emerald green divine light filled the boundless sky and land. The divine ruler continued to dance, attacking once again. This blow shook the sky. The entire imperial palace was shaking. This attack was incomparable. Chapter 2785 Hopeless Situation. Humph! There was a cold humph, and the mountain lord of the infinite mountains waved his hand. Instantly, infinite divine swords attacked murderously, clashing against the divine ruler silhouettes filling the sky. The divine swords seemed endless, and each sword contained immense sword will. The endless stream of attacks crashed against the divine ruler silhouettes filling the sky and blocked the incoming divine rulers. Now, the mountain lord of the infinite mountains was Wuliang the Great. The divine power that he had created was the infinite divine power. Everything in the world would begin to change physically once they reached a certain number, while infinite meant that it was never-ending. He could casually lift a finger, and the sword would become an infinite stream of swords. The beam of sword will would become infinite sword will without an end. If you wanted to destroy infinity, you needed a strong enough attack to destroy the infinite divine power instantly. If your explosive force weren't strong enough, you would not get another chance. He borrowed the will of Maharaja, and the power of the divine ruler's attack is already close to your level. The divine power contained in this divine ruler is not the ordinary path. It's like the most primitive force, the leader of the ancient Jiang clan said after standing quietly the entire time. Naturally, he was no longer his original self anymore. It was the consciousness of Heavenly Emperor Jiang controlling the body of this cultivator. As a former great emperor, he could feel how extraordinary Futian's divine power was. Futian's opportunity was not simple. Yes, he received this item from House Karura. It's the divine item to restrain the demonic lord and may contain the power of the former heavenly path. It might not be himself. He's quite lucky, Yuanshu the Great said. His voice was indifferent, but his eyes shone with a different kind of light. Could they receive such a divine item after killing Futian? However, they had 5 strong figures. There wouldn't be enough to go around. Even though it's not his power, it is already extraordinary that he can combine with the force and use it for himself. If this boy does not die, he will have a chance to step onto the great path and path of the emperors under the changing circumstances, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said. He thought highly of Futian. But thinking highly of Futian did not affect his decision to kill him. It was because of Futian's talent that he must be destroyed. If he stepped onto the path of the emperors in the future, he would pose a threat to them. If not for their existing rivalries, he would not be willing to kill such a talented figure. It was just a pity that he was destined to die. No one could change this result. Since 6th Emperor would not step in this time, no one would save Futian. And 6th Emperor would probably not interfere. As they spoke, another attack fell. The huge body of Maharaga hefted the divine ruler and attacked again. It was extremely aggressive, and this blow was even more powerful and unstoppable. When this attack fell, it penetrated Wuliang the Great's attack instantly. The infinite divine power was broken through. This shocked all of the great emperors. This divine ruler's attack had a different force from the great path. Other than the terrifyingly strong force, it seemed also to have the penetrative abilities of the great path of space. It had penetrated the infinite divine power in an instant. Although Wuliang the Great had been careless, this kind of attack was enough to be intimidating. The extremely aggressive attacks kept raining down on them, but a beautiful spatial curtain of light hung over the place where the cultivators stood in the lower sky. The divine ruler's attacks seemed to sink into the void when it hit the curtain. The spatial curtain of light rippled and showed no other reaction. It was Heavenly Emperor Jiang. "It's time to end," Heavenly Emperor Jiang said. He raised a hand and pointed into the sky. Instantly, divine light radiated through the vast sky. Divine power flooded out, rushing into the clouds. Bang! There was a muffled sound in the atrium. In that instant, it was like the entire land was covered by this divine power and was instantly shackled. The roaring and surging windstorm fell silent instantly and stopped its commotion. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace all halted and looked up into the sky. They saw countless golden runes appear in the storm that had been surging earlier. All the rune light made from the divine power had shackled the space, turning it into a divine formation that sealed it. It contained incredible spatial force. The hearts of all the strong cultivators beat quickly. They looked towards Heavenly Emperor Jiang again. He pointed at the sky, and a straight light beam appeared between him and the upper space. Divine power poured crazily into the air. This was Heavenly Emperor Jiang's divine power. It sealed Maharaga's violent intent with the unsurmountable spatial divine power. Yi Futian's consciousness was naturally sealed within too. His consciousness had already been combined with the land. This was why he could feel the restrictive divine power even more clearly. Break! Futian the Great sent the Futian divine print against the body of Maharaga that had been attacking them. Instantly, there was a muffled sound in the void. Maharaga's body shattered. However, Maharaga's body did not exist, so it did not truly threaten Yi Futian. What threatened him was the force in the upper space. At this time, the storm in the atrium started roaring again as if it would break free from the restraint. This surprised Heavenly Emperor Jiang. Could it break free from the shackles of his divine power? The law within this divine ruler was indeed extraordinary. But so what? How could human power change the intent of a heavenly emperor? Divine light gathered, and countless beams of divine power solidified into a long halberd. Heavenly Emperor Jiang held the divine halberd, and his figure flashed, disappearing from the spot. The next moment, the divine halberd formed by divine power hacked down on the center of the divine formation. The divine power in the formation started to explode madly in an instant. The destructive divine power went wild, destroying everything. The storm formed by the will of Maharaga was getting destroyed wildly. Even though the 5 great emperors had attacked many times since arriving, it was the first time they attacked with their divine weapon like Heavenly Emperor Jiang. This blow split the atrium and ripped the space. There was a muffled sound. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace saw many cracks appear. Fresh blood spattered out of one place. It looked gruesome. Then a figure appeared in that area. It was Yi Futian. Seeing this scene, the hearts of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivators dropped. Their pallor was white as paper. After all, Yi Futian was not a great emperor. He could only borrow the will of Maharaga, while the other party was a true reincarnated great emperor and returned for this battle. How strong was he? The Yi Imperial Palace had not faced this kind of crisis since its establishment. It could be said to be a fatal catastrophe with no way of turning the tides. 5 great emperors from ancient times had returned. No one could counter them. They had all worked hard on cultivating in the past few years, but they could only study the will of the great emperor to improve themselves. And right now, they were faced with actual great emperors. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.